All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners. Commissioners check-in. It's Monday, April 29, 2024. It is 2:03 p.m. My name is Ty Mentzer, Chair of the Board. To my left is Vice Chair Commissioner Wayne Fournier, Commissioner Carolina Mejia, Commissioner Gary Edwards, and Commissioner Emily Klaus, County Manager Leonard Hernandez, and Assistant County Manager Rob Gelder. Public virtual attendance on the Thurston County YouTube channel. We have a closed session and an executive session slated up first. We will then be, I think, tabling the rest of the items, and we're going to be picking back up with this morning's budget session that did not conclude from this morning's work session. So we can just go ahead and do that, I think. So,
sorry, Chair.
Yeah.
The multi-care letter, however, does need, it has a deadline of this Friday. So if not this afternoon, we would need to find another time to sort of get more concurrence on that.
I don't think there's going to be a big delay on that, is there? I don't know.
We could look to bring it the next couple of days.
I really think, I like, Mr. Chair.
yes, sir.
I had a discussion on this topic with the EMS folks on Thursday, I think that meeting was. And they're very hopeful that we will endorse and send that letter on. I'm hoping, did you get a chance to talk to Ben Todd? Okay.
So Ben Miller Todd, I talked to a couple of other folks.
Oh, okay.
At the BHASO and over at Multicare.
So we're good to go?
Yes, I have some information that I wanted to put on the record, but it's not in front of me, but
I was just thinking
will...
if we could kind of squeeze that on, and just take a minute.
Okay, well, let's just do everything. You guys we'll just be here till we're done with everything that needs to be done. It sounds like everything needs to be done, so we will do everything. Let's start with the closed session, RCW 42-3144A, collective bargaining session, corrections and deputy sheriff's contracts. Commissioner action may follow. There is no time estimate provided here. We then have an executive session pursuant to 42-30-110-1B, purchase of a building. That one's approximately 60 minutes. I don't know if those are accurate time estimates for either of those items. The first is to discuss that portion of a meeting during which governing body is planning to adopt strategy or position to be taken during the course of any collective bargaining. And the second piece is to consider selection of a site or acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase when public knowledge regarding such consideration would cause likelihood of increased price. And how long do you folks think you'll need for your piece?
We're here to receive the feedback from you that we left Tuesday, so it can be short if you don't have any questions.
And then I'm looking to the county manager on the second piece regarding building. How much time do we might need for that?
I would say 20 minutes. 20.
All right, so it's 2:07. Let's assume we're going to be in these closed sessions until 2:45. It's 38 minutes to cover both, and we'll extend if there's a need to extend. But otherwise, we'll try to be back by 2:45 to continue with the non-closed or executive session items. Let's wait till we get that announcement. Okay, it's 3 PM. We're out of the executive and closed sessions that kicked off this meeting. There's no formal commissioner action to follow. Next up, we're going to address the letter of support to multi-care that was discussed at our meeting last week. And I guess I raised some questions, and I was able to reach out to both our EMS director, our public health director, and the director of the BHASO and OHRS to try to figure out where this fits into the broader scheme. And what I think I understood is that even though there may be an issue going on that I identified about Medicaid rates and lack of ability of these smaller groups to compete, the application that multi-care is seeking is hitting a less common population, seniors and Medicare, Medicaid population. There hasn't been any objection or concerns expressed to the stakeholders that I reached out to, so I guess I'm gonna go ahead and support, and I was the one kind of holding things up, I think. So does everybody else have questions, concerns? We're ready to support the multi-care letter. Okay, everybody's thumbs up there.
Perfect. All right, we'll get it.
Thank you for the extra time for me to check that off. Tax title property cleanup, can we do this quickly, or does this need to be tabled?
Yeah, this is a quick one. Gave the overview. It's for $1,662.47.
Well, this is one we saw before.
Right.
A former encampment on county-owned property,
And it's just,
near Lily Road.
right, it's stuff that needs to be cleaned up. The team's ready to do that. They just need your approval.
Approval from the board. Okay, that covers that one. Now, before we are gonna table items 2 and 3, unless, go back to budget, or is there anything else that is like time sensitive? Okay, then let's go back to where we were this morning, and we've got Nicole Martinez back, and not sure exactly where we were, so let's just pick up and hand it to Nicole.
So yes, Nicole Martinez, Budget and Fiscal Manager. We're going over Amendment 1 changes for the 24-25 budget. And we had some talk or conversation about treatment sales tax. There are 3 items that are on the amendment for treatment sales tax. One is to purchase a building for $500,000. That would be rollover money from 23 into 24. The other is for ongoing funding for Monarch at $270,000. That's for 2 FTE. And the last request before us is for lead funding of $100,000 in 24 and 25. So we have a financial plan, treatment sales tax financial plan, to weigh all those options, those 3, against what's already currently in the budget. We did reach out to Monarch, and Jennifer, I'm gonna lead with you. You were able to you were able to reach out to the TST committee, is that correct?
The TST program manager was able to reach out to Monarch, and they indicated,
And those 2 positions that could be one position you're interested in.
they indicated that they would prioritize funding the 1 FTE for a clinical supervisor, and that would cost $153,000 a year. They were amenable to accepting one-time funding over the period of 1 to 2 years, but they are still interested in ongoing long-term funding.
So for one position, it's 153,
Yes, with salaries and benefits and rent.
and they're interested in, well, they would be willing to go with a 1 or 2 year.
So, the BHASO house, that's a one-time.
Yes.
This one is wanting to be ongoing. The lead, where does it fit there? I mean, it's one time, it's ongoing, but we really don't know where the funding's gonna be.
In the future, right?
So it's kind of like, we don't really know if that's one time or ongoing, or it may increase significantly because funding drops off or something.
In the financial plan, we are considering it as one time.
I have it in there actually as ongoing, and I'm looking at the change request right now to confirm. It would be, oh, that's the wrong one. Oh, please. That would be ongoing.
Okay. And then were you gonna play with the financial plans? And
So what we have, so what I have in here is, let me enlarge it a little bit. This is the spending plan without it up here. Here are the, three elements. So you have the 500,000 for the house, 270 for the Monarch, and the $100,000 for the lead. And here's what the financial plan looks like, the ending fund balance looks like if you, approve all of these and continue on with everything.
if you took the 500,000 out, I'm guessing it won't change much because it's one-time funding.
Right.
And then you change the 270 to 153, please. I'm sorry, I'm not.
And do you want to do it for 2 years or do you want it to continue?
Why don't you show us 1 year first and then show us 2 years?
And the lead funding for just 1 year, please.
And if you took them all out. If anyone remembers, and what was our discussion about how we were gonna get this back in the black when we did spending decisions? Did we have it? I'm sure we had that
We
discussion.
did, so we discussed that this was going to be for the biennium and that we'd be able to come back in and see where the revenues are coming in and be able to work closely with the program manager to look at the different, programs that are within the fund and that reversion amount.
So just kick the can down the road because we have a good fund balance now and it's just dropping fast.
Yeah, but we do need to have that conversation with, the program manager to look into where the spending is, where that activity is, to clean up the fund.
I'm guessing that's why the TST advisory is going through that budget process right now, is to kind of see where there are things, and that's why I recommended as a proposal for them as they're going through this, to also look at ways where a lot of this reversion is coming back from and seeing, you know, are those possibilities as well, and do they have a different proposal for us, and providing those avenues.
But that was already part of the plan at the time you adopted the budget.
Nicole, can you help me understand how program manager interacts with the advisory?
So, yeah, so Shaylin, she works very closely with, the committee to be able to go through the various requests that are before them, and not just in public health, across the entire county, all those requests that are coming through. She also has brought back recommendations from the board as far as the community grants, as also, specific requests for TSTs.
And so it's with her, what we'd work to say, if you're giving back money, let's go back and tighten up the programs, determine if you need less overall, change the ongoing number to a reduced amount.
The budget office would work closely with her on that direction as far as how to clean up the fund.
The majority of this money is spent by county offices and departments, so it's not as simple as just going to public health. We would work directly with Shaylin, but we would also need to coordinate with every office and department, the prosecutor, the courts, public defense, pretrial, all have TST money that they run on. So that's the overarching coordination and part of why this is complicated and not a quick analysis.
So when you say clean up, you mean have discussions with all those different stakeholders to figure out how they're going to reduce their ongoing expenses?
Yeah,
It's
so we see
possible.
year over year reversion, right? So we'd have to work with all those different departments who have authority within the fund to look at where they're really spending, what needs to happen, do you really need those positions, is that funding being
Gotcha.
used that way? So it would take some time to.
And how does the
sort of-
committee
do
play
that
into
every
that?
week, or every year.
So all the requests the different departments put together, those requests are submitted to the committee to be able to prioritize those.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for letting me ask those questions.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, I think the questions from this morning were kind of answered. Does the board want to take a vote, deal with this, move on? What, is there some, their suggested process?
My proposal stands. I mean, I honestly think that we can do Monarch and Lead for a year and have this time to evaluate with the advisory committee and see, like, come up with a different proposal.
You're saying both Monarch positions or one Monarch position?
Just the one Monarch position, the 153, right? That way
Okay.
you know, I would love to do both, but maybe for now, doing the 153 with the lead and then coming in during the midterm and having hopefully, some proposals from the TSD advisory committee on how we can process and having those recommendations on there as well on what it would look like to have the full 270 of Monarch on an ongoing basis and the 100,000 from lead.
And does that mean we'd pull back from the 500 to the?
That's not on there, that's gone.
That's gone, right? Okay, I'm with you.
I can support that because we're basically paying for it with the BHO money. And I would not be voting for ongoing funding right now because I don't think this fund shows that it can support any additional ongoing spending, but we're buying ourselves some time to figure out a way to fund it.
The priority for me would be to sit with the team and figure out how do we get the outgoing years into a balanced place. Sounds like that's something that was already given as.
Okay, but in the short run, sounds like we're all agreed on this.
I'm on board. I like it.
All right, there you go.
So then, the next packet to talk about is our policy level. So that would be policy level personnel. So, during the biennium, we reach out to citizens to engage with them to find out what the priorities are as far as the funding. So this time around during the biennium, during the amendment, which is our first time doing this, was reaching out to citizens as well for a survey. We opened up the survey for a week, and that survey was for our policy level requests, the personnel ones, and then also any policy level requests that did not have setting revenue. And so there was 8 requests to be prioritized. And right up here on the screen is the results from that survey. So we had 251 people view the page, our website. We had 60 individuals who submitted a response to the survey. The survey was just for ranking, so there's 8 policy level requests. What this first slide here shows the unweighted amount. It shows that out of the 60 submissions that we got, that 56 of them selected the increased election staff compensation request. So this unweighted amount here does not rank the actual request in order, but just how many times one request was submitted as either a 1 through 8 ranking. The next section here where it talks about the weighted amount is where it is ranked based on who selected which request first, second, or third, and so forth. And so there's only a slight difference that is in the 3rd and 4th request where they're flipped. So the corrections, medical professional services, cost of living increase, and then the temporary senior financial analyst position to permanent positions.
Okay, what are they?
And then the next portion here is just, and it's included in your packet too, but this is the ranking from 1 to 8 of the various requests. And a map as to where those individuals are located within the county who submitted a request.
So where are we gonna start?
Yep, so let's get into it. So policy level personnel. So the first, two lines, line 1 and 2, is for adjusting the funding source for the, assessor's position during the biennium to, assist with budget cuts. The budget office looked into, being able to fund this position with veterans funding. We did get information from our attorney and also from SAO on this ability to have funding, for this position. However, there is, a need to track what is going on in that office as far as the individuals that will be working on veterans cases. And so the assessor has asked that, this funding be used in the general fund instead of the veterans fund because of that load to be able to track.
This one's a thou shalt make the change, essentially.
So it is, determined from SAO and even our attorneys that this is a viable way to pay for this position. However, there is, a need to track that may be a heavy burden. So they're asking to switch it from the veterans to the general fund.
Is there money?
Excuse me?
Is there money in the general fund?
General fund,
General
well,
fund.
you
We don't have
We
money.
don't have much money, do we?
Don't have much.
So
We
this,
can't continue to fund it
Oh,
this way.
we haven't yet, but
Oh, yeah,
so all the, if I may put it in context, there was a exercise I went through where all the departments and offices were asked to cut a certain dollar amount. This was part of those cuts for the assessor's office. To abide by that, or to be able to fit into that, they were able to move $64,000 into the veterans fund to get to that cut. So if you were to put this back into the general fund, that means whatever portion they had as far as a cut would be short the $65,000. That would be the impact, $65,000 to the entire general fund. I wouldn't say that's significant, but that's the position for this is the request.
we were trying to assist every office and department to minimize the
Where's the cut?
impact of budget reductions. Had we not come up with this, the assessor's budget would have been reduced. But we got creative, or so than we should have been, apparently, and, so your choice now is to restore it, and the assessor would not have taken what would have been his fair share, if you will, of budget reductions. But it makes him whole. And I don't think that this is an inappropriate thing to be discussing in an amendment, because it is an action that we took during the budget process that is proven we can't implement.
It's been reversed, basically.
Yeah, basically. And I would absolutely agree when we're doing cost allocation, that you have to weigh the advantage of the cost allocation against the method of the cost allocation. And if it's too burdensome, you shouldn't do it, so.
and this will free up the $64,000 in the Veterans Fund to be used.
That's right, the Veterans Fund would have this money not coming out of it, it would just sit there for some other use. But it's, and I absolutely agree with Nicole, 65,000 alone is not a huge impact to the general fund. We do have the graph ready to go for when you're making other decisions.
What about with the auditors got some requests in there too?
The auditor does have requests. My personal thoughts on, you've received an email from the auditor sharing her thoughts. My thoughts are that the midterm is not the time to ask for the removal of the end date from this position. She's expressed to you why it's important to her to do that now. And then as far as the election staff compensation, you've given direction to your HR director. That's part of a package of things that is not ready. And as Maria explained to you, that is something that needs to be bargained. It's not even right. And we would not simply give a 5% at this time to the election staff.
Are we going down the list or are we gonna,
Yeah, so that's the next request, line 3 there.
are we doing this for
Yeah,
the
so we
vet?
need to, for 1 and 2, a vote on that unless there's further discussion. So to be able to move the funding from Veterans Fund into General
Yep.
Fund.
have to say, I'm not there yet. I'm gonna wanna see how it all pencils out, and where we set those priorities. I've got a question for Robin on what's the difference between the end date on your person versus Mary's person, I guess.
So the two positions were approved at the same time, both related to ARPA. Is the reason the board considered those positions. The end date on both positions is the same. The position that is in our office is devoted to ARPA. She doesn't do anything else. It's 100%. However, we are not asking for that end date to be removed at this time. If we were to bring forward that request, it would be in the midterm, and that's if we do. We don't know that we'll ask to have that removed. If I understand, and we've got Diana Benson here in the room, the position in the auditor's office works on items other than ARPA, and they are asking that the end date be removed now because the person that's in it at this time is getting ready to retire. They want to fill it. They would not be able to fill it efficiently with an end date of the end of this year. And they're asking that it be shifted to general fund on an ongoing basis. So, what's the difference? That's hard to compare, but, we are not asking for removal of the end date on our position at this time.
I do think that retention is a big issue, and it sounds like that party's gonna go on, and somebody else is waiting in the wings, it sounds like, to me, but they maybe don't want the job if they're looking at a 6-month job,
Could be.
whatever.
It's difficult to fill a position with an end date. I don't disagree with that. It's the purpose. I mean, the board approved these positions for ARPA.
And there's nothing to handle that being done from within?
As far as moving the position to the General Fund.
Well, no, about ending fund balance type reduction or something eventually.
My comment on this, like with so many other requests, is this a need? I clearly see it's a need. However, many of our offices and departments have needs. And to take this up at this time, if we were to go back and look at the process, there are certain things that come forward in an amendment. You need to create a fair playing field where everyone gets an opportunity to say what they need when there's scarce resources, and they were not given that opportunity. So this is not the right time for the board to consider. The time to consider this is the midterm. There's a need due to the timing of your retirement that, if I understand, for the removal of the end date specifically, that's the driving need for the timing of this. No. So what is the driving need for now instead of in the midterm?
So I would notice that we do the best we can to do needs assessment, each division managers and staff. With that, what do we think we're gonna need next year with the information we have at that point in time?
Can you, Diana, do you mind?
Microphone's not
Not
picking up.
captured by the mic unless you're at the table. So just pull your chair forward to the corner.
Okay, so Diana Benson, Chief Deputy Auditor. Auditor Hall is currently en route to Arizona, so I'm gonna play my best Mary. So what we knew last summer is dramatically different than what we know now. And Robin is correct that this position was originally established during the pandemic to work on ARPA. I didn't hear the answer to currently where that position is, the end date, but ours is 12/31/24. And ARPA is gonna be much longer than that. Also, TC Connect, what we knew going into early last year, we thought that was gonna be long behind us. And so the timing of this position has to do with subsequent events from what we knew from last summer. And the person that's in this position tracks her actual time and what she actually works on ARPA, she charges to that fund, what she actually works on TC Connect, which we in financial services, we're doing our best. Robin is correct that we have retirement, but not just one, we have two. And we thought they'd be after TC Connect is behind us, and they're not gonna quite make it to that finish line. And financial services, just as Robin is aware, is a county-wide resource for all of our offices and departments. And the reality is, July 1, or this summer, it's gonna be really busy in financial services when we go live. And this person has been a lead on one of the process improvement teams, is not gonna quite make it to go live, and also has been working heavily on the projects and grants module, also related to ARPA as one of our largest grants. So, what we know now is that we absolutely have a need. And if we wait to, when the time is right, for it to be midterm, for it to be effective January 1st, 2025, I'm not sure what's going to happen to our offices and departments that need this person and this assistance now, so that we don't have a vacancy. And if we try and hire someone at this level, a really high level, this person has been doing our CFA schedule, which is our schedule of expenditure of federal awards, which is audited every year by the state and submitted to the feds. They are cross-training for that eventual retirement, but it's coming right on us in weeks, not months. And to hire someone for what you're doing for the next few months is really difficult. So based on what the current need is, that we absolutely need this position, that's why the request was to have the end date removed. Which seemed like the easy peasy, I mean, we're pretty funded for 2024, 2025. And it's general fund, but split in the cost plan. So it does not all hit the general fund,
Oh, I need to know the difference.
Two-year lag,
the remainder.
2-year lag. So it'll hit the general fund for 25 and 26, and then come back
That's an easy
on a
decision for me, I guess.
60-40 split.
And that's the remainder, after ARPA, after the TC Connect fund, then the rest is split.
Let's say we went a middle ground, right? Would it work if we maybe just extended it to the end of 2025? Because at that point,
ARPA's until
ARPA's,
2027, is that
Our
correct?
position ends December 31, 2024.
Oh, it does.
Yes, it does, just like yours.
So I'm hoping you have a plan after 12/31/24 also.
We
Okay,
are going to assess that
okay.
and see what we need for ARPA for the county, since we're the grant manager for that grant.
And those two positions do work in conjunction on some aspects. I would not want to have any component of that put in a lurch because we have a vacancy in this important position.
Right, but we know
So
that
if
this
you're-
is not.
If you're proposing that we move the end date out instead of remove the end date, I'd take that back to Auditor Hall. I would say, anyone who's met me would say, let's make a deal. Can we go to 27 or till the end date of the known ARPA workload? And I hope that TC Connect is not a workload in 2027. But we absolutely do know that we need more help.
Would that be a step in the right direction, though, to solving the problem, the immediate problem?
It will still be challenging to hire someone for 18 months or
They can
3
see
years,
something's going
but they
on,
can
right?
see
Trying.
we have other retirements coming in that period of time.
And maybe you'll have vacancy savings.
We do. We do have, also, besides retirements and workload impacts, we have our lead, that was our accounts payable person, just went back to the state last week. So I'm on a hiring panel Wednesday for that. And we have one of our employees that's going on paid maternity leave.
Situations
Also in the
that
summer.
so many of our offices and departments face. So again, my comment is not that there's not a need. My comment is that everyone else with needs did not know this was an opportunity to ask for someone. So you are being asked to commit resources without considering all the other needs that are out there because of timing.
We've got 3 on here now, right? CPAD, assessor, and auditor.
You do, you have a few others, and I'm recommending that you say no to all of them.
Even the assessors?
The
assessor seems more like a
assessor's
technical
a little
fix.
different.
Because we're not even spending the money out of the
Assessor
next
is a
fund
little
now.
different
Yeah.
because of the.
We gave him the money, then took it away.
That's right, essentially, yes.
I never wrote any checks out of that
This is
account.
different than that.
So, can I ask about the reclassifications? Going back to the reclasses, because, I mean, just in that was a fix that we were gonna do last year, we didn't end up doing it. Now we're here, and so, I know we've given direction, I think I asked this question previously, and I'm just trying to get those 2 parallel tracks together, and so with this request that the auditor is asking for, is this just budget appropriation to cover those future actions by the board?
So are you asking about the reclass on the
The-
next page?
Yeah, well, increase in election staff compensation,
Okay.
which is, number 3.
That's not a reclass.
Well,
Just giving
that's
one
just,
A 10205 is the election staff compensation.
Right, so that is a reclass, and that's in conjunction with the class and comp study.
what was the class and comp
And then
study?
you've got 0207,
It's not a
which is a
reclass.
reclass of the
No, it's not a
auditor
reclass.
position to a program,
What is a class and comp
which
study?
I'm not sure why is.
So to address the increase for election staff compensation, I've spoken with Maria, and so this is based off of your conversations that you've had in the past about the class and comp study and how that's going to be handled. And so these positions were at the lower end of the market, and so those were looked into being able to be addressed currently. And so she has to work with the bargaining unions to be able to meet that need, to be able to see what's going to need to be done, to be able to reclass them or move them up in pay. She's mentioned that Cameron will be working on that bargaining process starting in May, so that's gonna take some time. So to put this in the budget at this time is premature from my
But
perspective.
how can we, so let's just say we follow that advice and everybody gets agreed, but like, we can't wait till the midterm. These, like, we're in the middle of like the most, horrific presidential election, I think that's coming. And we need this, like, it's a moot point almost, if we don't. Like, if we can wait for Cameron and then but we can't just come back and add this. So I mean, how do we manage that?
So in the past, if we were to stay with the direction that we've done in the past in our process, is that if there is a reclass during this time of the year, the department absorbs it. We can look into changing that process in the future, but to stick with what we've been doing so far, it is to, if you feel the need for this, is to say, absorb the cost once it's, been through that whole process, yes, but not to increase budget authority to
So,
cover.
so the auditor would have to take the
No,
29.
let's, may I interject, please? So, that is our normal process for one-off. We've never done a class of comp study before. You've given direction to HR at this point to specifically look at, I think, either 4 or 5 classifications that we know are under market. This is only one of them. When HR comes back and says, we finished negotiation, this is the cost, we don't have that yet. This is the change that's been agreed upon, we don't have that yet. We could do something unique because we are in a unique situation, and you could pass a budget amendment only for those items and address it in the moment. It's premature, as Nicole has said, but I don't think that, we would take a look and see how much, where we're at with expenditures, how much is getting reverted, can they absorb this? But I would not say for something that is gonna be so global as a whole classification changing. And again, it's not a reclass, it's a compensation. Remember that part of the conversation that we had with HR? It's a compensation that's being addressed. I don't think it would be reasonable to ask an office or department to absorb the cost of a compensation adjustment for an entire class.
Okay. But when you say global, I thought the auditor's email said it's not, it's a totally unique.
Well, then we would be looking at how many are actually affected and how much would that cost. But it's the class, and you've got options.
What I'm worried about is that I understand what we gave to the HR, but if there's 5 that she's working on, and one of them, for some reason, is like hanging up the party, meanwhile, this one has its own time-sensitive, unique nature, I don't want that, right? I mean, like, if it's, I want to follow the process and let Maria work with Union, but if this one's ready, I want to go so that the auditor can get its.
I agree, if this one is ready, we ought to
Can
be
we
going, but
sever?
Maria has said it's not.
Okay, but
And we can certainly work with Maria so that she understands that she should not wait and bundle all 4 or 5, that this one has a certain priority and it needs to move. We can give that.
Then we can't do like 4 different budget amendments as they're coming up, though. I mean,
Don't want to.
I feel like we know that this is a priority, right? Like, we've all heard just elections, Commissioner Menser covered it very well, and so I'm saying if we can just bite the bullet now, knowing that it's going to be coming up and that Maria's working through the process, and then that way, when the rest of, if these ones are ready, right, because just of the nature of, elections right now, we can go ahead and move these through, and then once the other stack is ready, Maria can bring that, and then at that time, we can do it as a budget another budget amendment. But for now, if we're gonna be breaking them up, then we're gonna be having what? Different budget amendments for each section?
I don't claim to understand how this works with the unions and everything, but but this is an appropriation, like, can we appropriate the money contingent on
Yes.
the union being in accordance with the whatever? That way, when Maria hits it, then Mary Hall can spend the money and pay the workers.
Yes, and to do that, I would recommend that you do an earmark appropriation in non-departmental.
Doesn't that make a
Rather
negotiation
than,
weird if we,
The auditor.
if we're like,
Because
okay,
then we gotta figure out exactly how much they actually need.
if we say, here's 9% that we're gonna set in a bank account now to negotiate, doesn't that make the negotiations a little weird when the union's
it
like, we know how
does.
much you
It-
got there and we want it all? I mean,
Yep, that's true. But
Can I ask you if, along that lines, and that was actually one of the, that's perfect segue, is we have at the end of each year, the election stabilization fund, that we do a deposit from the general fund into the stabilization fund in the years that's not a presidential election year. We essentially break the bank and do the other way this year, but could it be contingent where this money sits there, and if the union does not complete their work, it essentially gets staying in the general fund as unspent? We would revert it back, and it would not go with the stabilization fund, because we do have general fund money that sits there in case we have we have a recount or some unanticipated cost. But we
going.
absolutely do not intend to disrupt or delay the union or HR's work. And I will tell you that I very much appreciate, and talking to Maria, that we now have a May date. Back to the timing of when we put these requests in, when the budget team gives us a date, we need to have these in. We had no known date, and we had no information about what was happening with our below market. We knew there was an issue, we didn't know the timing of it. And when we hear, well, we'll address that later in the year, that sounds like 2025 to me. And the intensity is in this year, and it is extremely critical that this be addressed. And even if it's, the action is taken and it's pending that parallel track. So I was very happy to hear that we had a date in, I think, the third week of May, that Cameron is starting on these under market. That's why the auditor requested only a 5%, even though the consultant identified a 20% difference.
And it's making me
It
quite,
needs some more
quite
work.
frankly, it's making me uneasy that we're talking about bargaining in an open session.
Well,
But here we
it's a
here we
reality
were.
that it needs
Yep.
to be bargained, we know that.
Yeah, so it's, I think that if you put an earmark in, my only concern with the don't shift as much or,
Do not include it in the stabilization deposit, is what I'm
right, but
saying.
there's no shift to the stabilization fund this year
reverts
because it's a
to general.
presidential year. It's the money's coming out of the stabilization account this
Well,
year.
We have maintenance level and then back.
Well,
So anyway,
shouldn't be any this year.
the net is not the same. Anyway, I
In
would
any
like to not
case-
have to wait until 2025. That's not going to be acceptable to the auditor, and we need it now. And we've been saying that for, I mean, poor Maria's saying, now our numbers are old and they need to be refreshed. And even if we give her numbers, then we're back in the queue.
So Diana, may I ask a question? So is the need for the budget authority, for the increase in budget authority, or the ability to be able to pay them more?
It's a no fund balance impact, depending on, now in 2024,
Right.
because we're going to bill out our election costs to the jurisdictions. Now, in future years, there's an impact, and that's one of the items you've been talking about. But depending on what the county has on the ballot is how much it impacts the general fund, because we're going to pay employees and we're gonna bill those, costs out to the
I think we need to see where the bargaining lands and how much is actually
Right,
required
to
for
do a
all of
budget
this.
amendment.
Yeah,
So you can, again, you could be able to, you could say, yes, this not necessarily reclass, if that's not what we wanna call it, but this compensation change, yes, we will allow that, and we can do the budget authority at another time. So later in the year, as we find out what that amount is going to be,
Right.
that's when you
Okay.
can adjust what that is.
that's
So-
right.
So staff
So
can
you
get
would
busy with the
not-
process and
Yeah.
start working on it.
And
What you're asking
saying,
the board to do is just to approve the concept, and then you'll come back with numbers once it's negotiated.
exactly.
That is also what the auditor is asking. She is asking for the process to, and it seems that we have some thawing and unfreezing of what has happened. There's some movement, but that was not the case. Last year, we were told, do not put this in as an amendment because HR was doing it. And the union, after the contracts were completed, then they would take this up and it would be in the first amendment. And then it wasn't in the First Amendment. So Auditor Hall is looking to have this brought to the board for awareness that this is a need that cannot wait until 2025.
That was part of the email we got from the auditor. It's like, she would have brought it in the last year's budget if she was told that it was okay to do that.
I liked your proposal contingent on,
I
Thanks.
think that we don't need to put any money in the budget for this.
That's what I'm
We need to
hearing.
allow the process.
So there's no budget
Continue.
amendment.
Exactly,
Then
no
what are we talking
budget
about?
amendment.
Talking about authorizing staff to go forward and negotiate with the union.
That's
Which-
outside of
which
this
they've
budget amendment
already
process,
done.
right?
But,
And then
Right,
to pay the 5% increase to these positions.
that is not what is getting authorized though, because that's, any increase would need to be negotiated.
We requested a TPI which is a temporary pay increase, because every one of these few election workers supervise or lead. We have over 100 extra help this year, and we were told, no. There are too many TPIs, and they are not approving those.
And the extenuating circumstance is an unusual election.
I told you no.
Maria told me no, and I believe that came from you, Robin. So. She
That's
said,
not being requested now. Like,
well,
that would take a budget, that would be a
We
budget.
are asking for
on the
elections
table here.
employees to be paid an additional 5%, even if it's in a TPI, until the union completes their work. That is what was in the change request.
That's a different conversation.
But that's the request.
Yes, that is the
request is to
request.
pay these individuals 5% more, right? And they're asking for the authority, and what I believe Diana and myself were agreeing on is that they don't need the authority to do it, they just need the okay to be able to do the 5% increase at this time, while HR goes back and they do the behind the scenes with the bargaining union.
Can the board direct that? I've never done that before, so I don't know if that's appropriate.
That is the prerogative of the county manager according to our personnel policies. So I think that whether or not there's a TPI is not the conversation to have now. What I have heard is that this money does not need to be added at this time, and you have already authorized HR to move forward with the compensation adjustment, which they are addressing through bargaining. And that we can have a TPI conversation at a later, not too much later.
I said 2 p.m.
Date.
And I just want to make sure that you know the Auditor Hall and myself, we're willing to do any avenue, creative. We are looking to work
Everything's fine.
with the union, with the board, with the county manager, with HR, in order to make sure that this need is addressed before January 1st, 2025. So you name the date and time, and you tell me what form to fill out, I'd be happy to do that.
Well,
no
can I
fixing
ask
her
the
in
question,
now.
because, you know, regardless which process, I mean, a lot of these items, don't they get billed out to the different jurisdictions anyways?
Yes. That's why we don't actually need a budget amendment request right now. That's what Robin's saying. It's not a monetary issue. This is an opportunity for us to have this conversation and get some forward movement. Because when I found out that it was going to be later in the fall,
Then can we move
That
this
didn't work.
discussion to another place on agenda coming up?
Yeah.
I would
Is that-
actually like to recommend for Leonard, right, to have this conversation with Auditor Hall to
Can't leave.
approve a,
Is that his resignation letter
to
right there?
discuss a TPI. I mean, like, let's just get the ball rolling. If it's a direction from the board, then it goes to Leonard's plate, and
I just want to make sure that that is what the HR director would recommend. But we have talked about
She's right outside the door.
it. Okay, well, here she comes.
Your ears were burning.
Oh, that's,
Well, she's out there talking with
All right,
him.
well,
So this one needs to be moved to a different place.
yes. Just not 2025.
Yeah.
so that's that, but now you've got.
There you go. There's
you've got
one.
One out of 3 audit items, and we never resolved the 2 assessor items, so we've done 1 out of 5 of the discussed items so far. Let's,
Move on.
should we, no, well, yeah, kind of.
Hi.
Unless you want to summarize it for Maria's benefit.
Well, yeah. I think I want to make sure, because there seems like there's some confusion as to what's said, what's not said. And it sounds like what I'm hearing from the board is they want to move this along, they want to get something going. I just want to be clear that we're on the same page as to what needs to be done. I'd hate to move from this meeting, you go away with the understanding, and our team has another understanding. If we're gonna move this along, then I just want to be clear as to how it's moving along. So, Maria, we're discussing the election positions and the fact that the change of the compensation for those positions has to be bargained.
Yes.
You want to provide an update as to where that process is at?
So, Cameron has scheduled a bargaining session with the union for May 21st. So, And Diana and I had a conversation earlier today where we talked about the bargaining process and how important it is for us to engage with the union without changing employee compensation arbitrarily, even if it's an increase. We still have to bargain with that increase. Increases,
TPI.
Right. Well, what I knew is that this was going to be adopted June 4th, and I expected that we would be working through the union. May 21st is before June 4th, but I don't have any idea how long that process will be.
I understand. So so this action is, let's get it in the hopper so that as the bargaining finishes, it's parallel path rather than having to wait even longer.
Yes, when Robin says, I recommend the answer is no, it needs to be midterm, and that's 25, I then say, how can we make this yes before 25?
Okay. So then how long, what's a path forward on bargaining? What does that look like from a time frame standpoint? Are we thinking weeks, months?
it's really hard to say.
Just give me, we're not gonna hold you to it, but just like, I'm just trying to get
I
a
would
sense of.
say it could take months. It never takes weeks, it
Okay,
takes
good.
months.
All right.
The quicker the union wants a resolution and an increase in pay, they'll make it move quicker, I would imagine.
No,
Well, they could.
they could,
Yes,
but
but
They're
they
gonna wanna
generally
look at
don't.
all their union,
Yes.
right? Like, usually their interests are to get, changes across their membership versus one or two, let's say.
I
So
see.
that can, that's part of that discussion.
So if you only go with one classification and say, we wanna do these folks, they're gonna come back and say, well, we wanna do all of these folks.
Which is part of why this is complicated, is we're looking not only at the single class of 5 or 6 people, we're looking at compression and what's the effect across the, we're
Right, so-
calling them family of classes.
Right, so if you change, a widget maker 2, then you're looking at the 1 and then the 3 and the 4, et cetera. So there's a cascading effect, and that's part of the discussion.
And Maria and I did talk this morning that it made sense to me what HR did last year with the different tiers of putting those that were identified under market as the first tier, but just because it makes sense to us, and I say, well, we don't have any other elections positions in any other office and department in the county, so therefore it's unique. But I just want to make sure that we don't pass this opportunity for this conversation for them to have some movement in what we know is a need, which is why we asked for something temporary while they still continued their work. But I am happy that we have a May date, that's much earlier, and I'm willing to do anything that's gonna keep it moving, keep it rolling.
So if it lies with the county manager to keep the momentum on this, then you absolutely have my commitment to do that. Thank you, Maria, for being proactive in setting that meeting with you and Cameron. And then we can be in discussions offline as to how that goes and how we continue to move this as a priority.
And so, Maria, can we ask the question that Commissioner Mentzer brought up, that if we did, the budget amendment part is not really the process that we need here in formal action. If we did some action even outside of the amendment, like HR normally does, that's contingent upon the union, is there anything that we can do for that? For them to be receiving something or have something contingent?
So process-wise, if we get agreement with the union, of course, come back and brief you, and then we, with budget, discuss what that looks like. And then I think that conversation would be, do you want to adopt a resolution changing those, or do you want to do it through some of your normal budget amendments or budget process? So that would be a discussion we would have, is taking it outside of, because initially when we were doing the class and comp study, it was designed to be in alignment with budget, because you're looking across the county, and so you could be talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. Now we've broken it into something smaller, and so it seems feasible you could address that outside of some of your budget, but I would rely on having those discussions with the county manager.
Great, so we have options. All right, and as a county manager, we'll keep this as a priority. We'll get them into the room to negotiate, and we'll come back to the board with options.
But we're striking it from the budget amendment.
Doesn't sound like we need this to be a budget amendment, because we have options to do it a different way. And hopefully, does that
At
get,
this point in time,
yes,
we may need to come back at the final amendment, depending on where we're at with our overall budget authority, but I hope that we have prior planning on that. And whatever we have, whatever we have for expenditure.
are you comfortable with that?
So I'll ask Auditor Hall if she is, but as I spoke to her this morning, Anne Marie and I talked this morning, we just do not want this to wait till 25, so yes.
Okay, so let's go on to the next auditor. We'll double back to the assessor, because we never resolved that, but let's just take, just in case we have questions for the deputy auditor who happens to be here, let's talk the financial services position end date question.
So that's the ARPA position that we were just speaking about that ending. It has an end date of December 31st, 2024 this year. And so we were just
Is there a compromise floated by somebody to extend the end date rather than removing it?
And would you do that for our position as well?
To 2027.
I really think we should.
the end
I
of
mean,
ARPA.
I have to say, they're pretty equal.
Our position, meaning our budget position?
Yes. So we don't think we need it. And our position works 100% on ARPA.
But I
So
think she's got
how
some
much-
personnel issues going on.
What's the percent of ARPA time of the position that you all have?
Yeah, we also have been pretty careful about what we're charging, very careful about what we're charging to actual, but for instance, even when this person is working on TC Connect and projects and grants, none of that, even though the largest one is ARPA or CFA, none of that's being charged to ARPA. So there's some,
Personally, I don't think it's necessary, but for ARPA.
Yeah, but I think that what Mary is talking about is having that problem about either retention or recruiting, one or the other, and it doesn't. And there's, her unique situation is, and I don't know how close this is tied to the election, but we have a very unique election coming up as well.
So this has connected more to TC Connect, right? And that's been just a huge uphill battle from the very start. And it's put a lot of pressure on not just our budget team, but I know financial services, on IT, on different departments. And so for me, like, we've approved different positions and just to be able to assist in this. So I see it, and that's why I was like, well, can we extend the date instead? And will that be like a middle road to kind of proceed, but not sure if that's.
So if this is actually tied to TC Connect, the board said no to extending end dates for TC Connect for positions in the budget office and in IT. So should we have requested those in this cycle?
so Robin, I believe that I started this with talking about what the needs assessment is at this point in time. And when you had budget last year, you had budget positions that weren't filled. You had just a small budget team. We're working together on budget. You still have another position that's not filled. It's always that continuous needs assessment. And financial services does support the entire county. So what is going to happen if we don't have adequate people and resources in financial services? It's going to be an impact countywide.
So does the budget office support the entire county?
Which is why you have another position.
And IT supports the entire county, and the board, my point to the board is they are asking, you're asking them to review this in a vacuum when there are many other needs, and those offices and departments followed the guidelines and did not come in and ask it.
So Robin,
even though we knew now that we'll need it.
I absolutely have every attempt to follow every guideline and parameter. Situations change, and there are a few contact points with the board. And I believe last year you received another budget position, correct? Because your situation has changed. And our situation is dire and not temporary. We need this position.
You know, let me just throw out there that we did something for the sheriff, well, we're contemplating doing something for the sheriff. Things are gonna change June 1st. Things are gonna happen. So I'm just using that as an example. Things change.
They do, and each elected official and each department director continuously is trying to manage the operations of their office and department with the resources they have. And we absolutely, I mean, I probably don't need to tell you that the auditor's queue is this long. And she comes with those things that she absolutely feels she needs.
Well, I would just, if I may, agree with Robin here in that there are a lot of requests that departments and offices have not submitted, especially when it comes to personnel and especially to end-dated positions. And around TC Connect, that has been a heavy load for many departments and offices that have end-dated positions, and they weren't given that opportunity to submit them before you. And knowing that entire list of all those departments that would have liked to have requested an end date be removed or extended for that position, I think in this context, it doesn't allow everyone that opportunity.
And so,
I'm gonna call for, this Commissioner Hughes asked for a break. I need one as well, so we're gonna take till 4:10.
okay.
Are you putting some kind of a suggestion?
Okay, it's 4:12. We are back from a short break, and we're picking back up with our policy requests. We're gonna need, how do you want to do this, Nicole? Line by line, or
Nope, I'm glad that you,
We could go
do
line
you
by
want to
line, so
continue
we can-
debating the auditor stuff? There's two more.
No, I don't think we need to continue to do that. We can go line by line and unless there's any other questions about something in particular. For instance, line 5, the reclassification for the auditor position has been since pulled. The auditor's office and HR have spoken, and so this is no longer needed.
So that will be in the next bundle, so that you've started the bundle process.
Right, so we
HR's been working on that one.
And what about line 4? That was just,
That's the one.
it was
We haven't
discussed,
decided.
nothing decided, okay.
So let's go back to 1.
Yeah,
So we
go
thought,
back to 1 and start.
Never left one.
well, we never left it because Commissioner Edwards wanted to hear more about the auditor.
Thanks, Gary.
And we kind of got off to the auditor. So let's go back and decide what we're doing with the pulling the veterans' money and putting it back in the general fund. I guess there's 3 options. Keep it in the veterans fund, don't do either of these. Take it from the veterans fund, but don't backfill it with general, or pull it from veteran and backfill it with general fund.
well, the assessor said he didn't want to do it with the veterans.
That's right. The assessor is not, he's not gonna follow the mandatory, what would be a mandatory process to be able to properly allocate costs. So leaving it in the Veterans Fund is really not, he won't do it.
No, but he will, but it's not absorbed, I mean, he loses the FTE if we don't general fund it.
Exactly.
He doesn't have any ability to.
Absorb it.
Or
And he never has an ending fund balance that amounts to anything anyway, does he?
Well, that's because he moves costs.
Well, okay, but the fact remains, he never has any money.
Yeah.
So thumbs up or thumbs down for the assessor line? I see 1, 2 up, 3 up, 4.
I guess so.
Okay, it's 5 thumbs up for the assessor.
Line 3 was removed. Line 4 is for the removal of the end date for the financial services position within the auditor's office.
And the compromise was to push it back.
The auditor said she was, what she could hear of the elections conference, or conversation, she said that worked for her. She said the temporary end date on the financial services position, that does not work for her, based on the staffing challenges we have in front of us, not just in our office, but for the county.
So,
And who is going to do that work if we do not attract a person to do this job? And the schedule of expenditure of federal awards, our lead accounts payable person, our
Okay.
person in payroll that's retiring, the person having a baby.
Talking about one position with an end date?
Yes, but I mean, the point is, where we would normally have people that would help each other backfill and that have some cross-training, we have very minimal depth right now. So this one position with a requested end date, that's a 2025 impact only, 2024 is taken care of and absorbed, is what her request is. And 2025 forward.
and we've got a,
That is billed to other funds in the county besides the general fund.
yeah, so it's not just absorbed by the general fund.
So this is an ARPA position, 15% to ARPA.
15 or 50?
15% to ARPA, right, the remaining to the general fund. And it was a project position for ARPA. And so you're asking to remove the ending.
And so the
Get a permanent
commissioners,
position.
Permanent general fund
the commissioners will have to make that tough decision. If it's the investment in the county and the financial services division that the auditor believes. And Darren, the financial services manager, was gonna come and ask for 2 positions. And instead of asking for new positions, we requested to have an abatement removed.
That's the decision before the board.
So remove the end date or not is the,
I'm gonna say remove the end date myself. That's where I'm at.
I agree.
3.
4.
Nicole said, the next one we're gonna do in the bundle, so
Yep. Line 5 has
appreciate
been-
all of your time.
Thank you for being here.
The prosecuting attorney, the elected officials' salary, increase, the 50% we get from the state. So this is asking to record that revenue, and the expenses to match. This is also included on the errata list because we are making sure that the revenue and the expenses are sitting within the same fund. So we're asking to increase based off of the offsetting revenue that we get from the state. Vote.
What's the option?
Absorb, which is what they've done in the past.
They're only asking for the portion that is funded by the state, so they're already.
Oh, okay.
So this is revenue with the expenses they match.
Oh, it matches. No, then just say yes.
Just, okay. Next. Go ahead.
So, line 8 here is for the court backlog positions during the budget process. The decision was made that any of the positions that were in the court backlog that were unfilled, that those would not be carried forward into the biennium. However, the prosecuting attorney is asking for one of those positions to be filled.
It says public safety sales tax account. Is that just because we're moving?
So, they're asking for it to be extended in ARPA, and then eventually it would go into public safety sales tax.
This is on the errata list as well.
What's the position for exactly?
It's a deputy prosecuting attorney position.
COVID backlog position.
Backlog from ARPA.
And that's where
So-
the money's gonna come from too, isn't it?
Had an end date, still has an end date.
Yes, it still has an end date. So during the budget process, the prosecuting attorney had 4 deputy prosecuting attorneys, 2 legal assistants, and a paralegal. To be able to fund all the earmarks within ARPA, the decision was that if there are any unfilled court backlog positions, that those would not be extended.
Right.
And so one of those positions was a deputy prosecuting attorney. This request is asking to fill that position.
So the board said no in the budget process, and now he's asking again for you to reconsider.
So they had a deputy prosecuting attorney in the project position and the ARPA position that was moved to a permanent position in the general fund, and now they're asking to open up another position within court backlog.
Would it be ARPA money?
It would be ARPA money.
Well, we got ARPA money, don't we?
So there is a little bit of ARPA that has been freed up, but you've also asked us for a process to allow other organizations. We've got at least 3 requests for ARPA money in addition to this, and we don't know how many more might be coming in.
So we have an ARPA process request that this might be eligible to go through, is that?
Would be a much better
I
avenue.
don't know, I wonder if that's right or not. The only reason I say that,
For saying yes, so.
he's got, he's trying to fulfill a job that was caused by the virus, I think is about the simplest way to put it.
How many positions do you know, this is a question, I don't know if you've got the answer. At the time the board made the decision about, we will carry forward these ones that are filled, we won't carry forward these ones who are not filled. How many positions were not filled that the board said no to? 2. Both in the prosecutor's office or 1 in public defense?
Both in the prosecutor's office, one had never been filled, one had been vacated recently.
All right. So he's asking for 1 of 2 that had been said no to during the budget process.
So when does this get, I'm confused about the whole public safety tax part. When does it get converted over? And like, he's gonna get positions connected to that, and if he wants to make this one of them, why is that an issue? Is there a bridge or something?
This has since been corrected on the errata list, it's out of ARPA.
So it's not out of
Oh,
policy.
this is a
Right
mistake.
now,
Should be ARPA,
so
not
right now it's out of ARPA. the intent is after the biennium, after the end date ends, to put it in public safety sales tax. So the request before you is just through ARPA, not public safety sales tax.
And the problem was created by ARPA, by COVID, so why wouldn't we want to cover it with
This
those
definitely
funds?
is a COVID eligible.
The only issue is, as Robin was saying, is like we've got, if there's ARPA funds available, we need to have a process for ARPA funds to be accessed.
Those are for like, nonprofits and different things like that. Have we got anybody else that's specifically trying to solve COVID problems that they can point to just like this?
That's probably, we don't know unless we put that out there
Well,
and give everybody the
But
opportunity.
you're talking about, well, okay, I'm kind of advocating for him here because I want to get this over with myself, but.
We have a core backlog slot in ARPA. Is there not enough funds in that core backlog
Nope, you
bucket?
reduced it to cover only those positions that were filled. So this would be adding, it would be taking away from the unassigned, let's say, and assigning it to court backlog to cover this cost.
How many positions do we have in the court backlog currently from the prosecutor's office?
So there were 7 and you approved 5.
There had been 7 and you said yes to 5 going forward, so we want one more for the prosecutor. How many in public defense?
I'll have to look at them.
Don't know that off the top of my head. And I'm guessing the person passed?
He did pass the bar.
4 in public defense, 3 defense attorneys. So 2 defense attorneys, 1 defense attorney, 2, and a legal assistant. Superior Court has 2, and then also some funding for, yep. And then
Corrections deputy,
the clerk has 1 position.
yep. Plus the cost of the, how much money is he asking for here?
And 24, about 88,000, and 20.
I have a procedural question. It says in the statement of need that the PAO committed this position to that temporary employee after he passes the bar examination. Is that, like typical for a position to be committed like that before the budget is approved for that position? Or is that something that,
Shouldn't be.
okay,
So we followed up with that on HR, so there were 2 positions that were empty, or 1 was filled and 1 was empty. The one that was filled, they moved that position or that individual into a permanent general fund position, which leaves that one open. So they moved this request into that position number, and so that's why they're saying that they really want to move it into an unfilled position.
okay.
That just confused me.
Okay, so, they have 4 prosecuting attorney positions. One of them, they moved into a permanent position. And so they took this position and they moved them into that spot. But what they're saying is that they really should have put this person into one of the unfilled positions. So they're just generally asking for another position.
Okay, so then,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a no for me. I think it needs to come through our ARPA process when we're discussing all the requests that have come in.
We're talking about this tail end of ARPA that might have been, this is a $200,000 request, so how much money, my sense was there was only a few $100,000 left in ARPA to be earmarked for something or other.
It all depends on what happens to broadband. If broadband falls through, you've got a lot of money, but you've also got a lot of need because you can shift the, any leftover ARPA money into transportation projects, that we know we need and can happen within the proper time frame. But we've also heard from at least 2 nonprofits, and the Commissioner Mejia's referred the BHASO with a request, and I don't know how many more could be out there.
quite a few, I mean, it's something that I think we're getting asked, or at least I've gotten asked by a couple of organizations, and I've been referring them to, like, you know, Nicole, and to submit proposals, but I think if there is a request for proposals, we'll receive quite a few from different, and it's just having to do with different services, and I think even some inside the county, if we were to let people know that there was some ARPA, we would receive requests from different department and offices about this, so I think the board needs to decide what we're gonna do with ARPA first, and which way, if we're gonna go with the broadband way or not, before doing.
If we had a process like that, then how do we fit that into the budget amendment?
So there doesn't need to be a budget amendment. You have plenty of appropriation from ARPA. And if it could be absorbed within the ARPA appropriation.
Including a
you don't
prosecutor
need
position?
Yes, including the prosecutor.
So we could tell the prosecutor that we're not approving this, but he should submit the request
Through the ARPA process
so
that
that we
will
can
come up
consider
later
it in
this
line
month.
with all the other remaining ARPA.
He may have a timing issue, because apparently he's already promised this position.
To a person that just passed the bar.
There's a position for that person to land in, because they moved that individual into a general fund permanent position. So all of ARPA has been appropriated, you've appropriated all of it, and so depending on how you want to earmark that money during that policy or that process that we're putting together in May, we can discuss this position and any other requests that come through.
I agree with that recommendation.
As long as it's put in there, you know, I don't have any problem with that.
Working on a process right now, Diana Aaron's, who is your ARPA expert, she's helping put together a process to come before you in May when we have our briefing to discuss how that,
So defer to me.
So then line 9 is for a new program manager for the CPED for Habitat Conservation Station. This request, I've been working closely with CPED to see to get some more information on this request. This request is needed because it will help with grant funding. So in your follow-up packet on page 8, there is a list of grants that they're interested in going out for. To be able to have a program manager now added to the budget will assist with these grants. They're looking to do the one, which is a salmon recovery planning grant. And that's all I have to add about that.
I had a note from the last hearing, or the last first review, that it was a proposal to put this into the midterm.
That was a proposal to put it into the midterm, because of our
Positions belong.
right, because of the direction that Robin has given that, she's mentioned in our process that new positions should be included in the biennium. However, there is a need for this position right now. There is an opportunity to bring in more revenue into the county, and I think just because of policy and procedures, we should look into that. If it can generate revenue, and it can go into habitat conservation, they can help plan for that revenue. This is something to be considered, and you could put underneath the emergency or emergency.
And this isn't general fund either,
No,
right?
it's habitat
I
conservation
don't
funding.
understand how this would qualify for funding from the Habitat Fund if it's not doing work directly related to the management of the habitat, which is the purpose of that fund.
That is correct. So, Josh also was able to share with me the habitat conservation plan where it identifies that a habitat program manager is what was planned to be able to help with these grants and providing services for habitat conservation. So I do believe that this position does fall within that fund in the use of it.
So the plan had been, when the time came, but they didn't ask for it in the budget process. This was not an unknown need. We've had that plan in place for a few years now. We've been talking about the need for the program manager. And again, I'm telling you that the timing, it's process and timing is not appropriate.
Well, I'm
but
gonna
it's
differ
up
with
to
you a little bit on this, and that is that I've been pretty critical of CPED, I guess, in doing their job, but in this particular case, I think that they were able to come to us with an update. I think, are we doing it once a month now? Does anybody remember? Is it once a month? And it's showing a revenue stream coming in, from those reviews, I guess is the best way to put it. And I don't know that he knew that would even be here, and I do think that they're probably, I think we shouldn't do it if it doesn't come out of, that Habitat Conservation Fund. I don't want to do it out of general fund, but if he's bringing it in like he's doing, like his reports have been showing, I know that one development or something put in, I don't know, 500,000 or something that they oversaw. I don't know what the individuals are doing, but I think it's doable, and if it's out of sequence, if you will, but we've had quite a few things out of sequence. And this one, he didn't know he could have it. He didn't know what it would be available until it became available. So that's kind of where I'm at on that.
Just add to that, that there is revenue in the fund to support the position, and then also it would be revenue generating to be able to bring in grant revenues.
I'm right there with you.
Is there support for this item? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 yes and 1 no.
Okay, that's all of the policy personnel requests. To policy level. The first request here is for the assessor's mobile maintenance. So this was a request that was put in for the 24-25 budget. It was for the one-time cost for the software that was covered within the rates. And then the other is for the maintenance. The maintenance would be inside of the real estate exercise tax fund for some time, and then ongoing, that maintenance would be included in the rates.
What are you at, line 1?
Line 1.
It says policy level.
Yeah.
Page 1 of 1.
It's like the
is just
second to
policy.
last page.
Is everyone able to find it?
Isn't that what this real estate excise tax fund is for?
Yes, it is.
I mean, it can't be used for something else.
It's an appropriate use of the fund.
Thank you, Rob.
This is the maintenance associated with mobile. Yeah.
All right.
You're ready for,
I think everyone's on the same page now, literally, so.
We haven't all said thumbs up yet.
Can you go over it one more time?
yes, so mobile assessor, it was approved during the biennium for the one-time cost for the software that was budgeted already within the rates. So that money has already been approved in 2024. This is the maintenance for it. So this is the maintenance to come out of the REIT Tech Fund. After the 2024, it'll go into the rates, and then this way it'll continue to pay. So it's just for the maintenance of the software that was approved in the biennium.
Any questions?
It
Support?
was an oversight by the assessor. He explained that at the first review.
2, 3, 4, 5, great.
Okay, so the next two lines, 2 and 3, this is to add revenue for special elections. During the budget process, it wasn't known exactly how much revenue would be able to come in, so this is showing the revenue and the expenses associated with carrying on with the election.
Questions? Support? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, so line 4 is for the budget authority for the contract with Tenino. This is revenue and expenses, they match each other.
I don't know if we want to do that.
This is for law enforcement
Yeah.
services. Yep, line 4.
And 4.
So we contract our law enforcement services with Tenino. This would be the revenue and expenses they
All our
would match.
coverage.
We got 1, one yes, two yes, three
We
yes?
got four.
Four, five yeses.
So line 5 is also for contracts, this is for $2,500, revenue and expenses associated with that, and this is for performing certain services through the law enforcement. It's a contract,
Two yeses,
setting revenue.
three yeses, four yeses, five yeses.
Okay, so line 6 and 7 is for increase in medical services, for the jail. The $1,600 that is, shown in treatment sales tax, we've asked the sheriff's office if they can absorb that within their current TST funding, and yes, $1,600 can be absorbed. However, there is a $46,000 or $47,000 impact to the general fund.
We can absorb all of it?
They've had reversions in the past in the general fund that could cover this, but we have not reached out to them specifically this year to ask that.
This
Medical, yes.
is medical
Couldn't
costs
have-
for corrections employees.
I thought we had information from Heidi.
I don't think this is,
General fund portion.
Is this, yeah, or is this the
I think this is the cost of-
incarcerated
for
individual?
incarcerated individuals, I think.
I thought this was for inmates.
Yes, it's for the.
So I don't,
It's built into the contract for the.
a contractual thing, I think.
For not our employees, but for those who work on the services for the jail that we contract out.
Contracted nurses.
So you have not asked the sheriff if they can pick up the general fund costs? Is that something you can do? So, sounds like the decision point to approve or to ask the sheriff to pick up the costs.
I'd ask him to pick up the cost if he's, because he's got some vacancy money.
So we have two for picking up the costs. Is there any, three, four?
So approved.
I was supporting the funding request,
Oh, you were spending funding with,
as it's been requested, because
sorry.
this is built into the contracts, and
I'd say if he can't pick it up, we gotta pay it.
I'm gonna have questions about the things that we're gonna be asked, that he's gonna be asking to fund tomorrow, so this one seems more like in line with maintenance level than like new pilots for new technologies, so I'd say those should be absorbed, these should be covered, that's just my perspective.
So we have one to approve as is. Any others to approve as is? To
Well,
ask
if
him?
he can pay for, my druthers would be if he can't absorb it, because I think that he can. If he can't, I think we gotta pay it. It's the cost of doing business.
So we'll ask him to absorb it, and if he can, cover it. Your support for that?
There it is for me.
Yeah, but what's the timeline? Don't we have to know like right away? Do we
So
have
you would-
time to ask him?
You would be approving to accept this request as it is out of the general fund. If they can absorb it, we will not increase the authority.
It's money. I think he's got some money, but
Yeah, with vacancy savings.
Yeah, you should.
I
it's
think
not
he's
that
got
much.
vacancy savings. But
I at least would want, if they've already said they can absorb the treatment sales tax, then I would say yes to them absorbing the minimum, the treatment sales tax, if they've already said they can do that.
Oh, for sure.
No, I was talking about the line 6.
And six.
8? Is 8 bigger?
I think what I'm
Yeah,
hearing
it's
is
gotta
a
be
yes.
general fund.
It's gotta be general fund, so am I hearing that there is a yes to approve this line, $47,000 out of the general fund, but you would like for me to ask if he can absorb it?
Yeah, just
It's
if
still
he,
a yes.
if he can't, for whatever reason, and you agree, then we gotta pay it, I think. I don't think there's a way around it. It's a
Yeah,
contract
I agree
thing.
with that.
All right, so then line 8 is for $100,000 out of the general fund for medical services. This is also a contract increase due to insurance premiums increasing.
Same problem. I mean, but I don't think he's got the money to cover it all. Maybe.
How much did the sheriff revert?
I was gonna look into our last year reversion. So
Yeah, you said he was sitting on 3 million in the,
He reverted a extreme amount of money.
yeah.
But this year, you just approved, some items where he'd be, the last lateral bonuses, he's using those
Double
vacancy.
overtime or
The
something
double
like that, isn't it?
overtime, he's using his savings for, what else did we just approve for the corrections?
Corrections, bonuses for laterals.
Yep, so
But those weren't-
he's already brought proposals to you on how to spend those vacancy savings,
That
in addition to the other overtime he's got.
Did that include the
I don't know if he's
grappler
still
and
here, but I
Star
can-
Chase?
Those are in law enforcement. He's using law enforcement under expenditures to pay for those. Those are not corrections.
Okay, but we're not being asked to appropriate for those two programs tomorrow. Those are just authorizing him to
He's
acquire.
going to absorb those in law enforcement. Remember, each one of them is slightly under 50,000
Yep.
because he's doing pilots.
Yeah,
So
that's why I was
he
curious, because
said
this is also
that
50,000, slightly under
These
50,000.
are corrections and you cannot, yeah, it's different. But I
Have
don't
we-
know how much
have we
he can
totaled
absorb.
Everything he's requested so far, have we totaled that up to figure out where we're at with his costs?
So I'm not sure what Robin was just speaking to, but in this amendment for corrections, we're about the $150,000 request out of the general fund. Last year, the corrections reverted $760,000. And most of it is vacancy savings.
Those are filling up quickly. But there's the same thing going on in law enforcement, right? There's vacancy savings, there's a lateral program, there's new technological pilots that are being proposed, and it hasn't been 100% clear to me the financing of each of those pieces. I knew the lateral programs were based on vacancy savings, but we never.
They also save money because when you.
Yeah,
hi-
but we
you know,
never really talked about the grappler, like where that's being funded out of.
It's gonna come from general fund vacancy savings. Is he talking about general fund or is he talking
He was
about
asking for general.
vacancies in public safety?
I'm pretty sure he's asking for general fund for that.
I thought that he was planning to spend general fund on that.
We don't have a choice about not paying for insurance.
I was gonna ask, what's the consequence of saying no? I mean, if you can't afford it, then.
So the consequence is he would revert something less. He's gotta pay it. It's not like he doesn't have to pay for this. But the question is, does he have sufficient appropriation authority now? And that's the question. With the other things, the bonuses and the double overtime that the board has already given direction on, how much of that is gonna eat up what he would have had in reversion this year? We don't know.
And Heidi's not online anymore, so she's out of the office for the day.
Okay, but we could put together an overview of the costs that we know to date and the different funds that are coming from their estimated reversion. The board can have a bird's eye view of what that looks like. Okay. So on this one, what's the decision point? I mean, you just said we have to pay it?
Yes, it needs to be paid, it is insurance. We can pay it, we can do the same as we did on the last request, which is, if they can absorb it, we can say yes.
They said they couldn't in the explanation in the statement of need.
When you're looking for a thumbs up if this is gonna get approved?
So, yeah, we need a thumbs up then, you're right. Thumbs up or thumbs down.
Thumbs down, we got 2, thumbs up 3. 3 to 1. Okay, 4 to 1.
Line 9 is for essential services, it's out of the ER&R fund. This is for equipment and replacement, $537,000 in 2024. It's for 2 vehicles at the sheriff's office and also some roads and engineering funds, vehicles, solid waste as well.
Can I ask something really quick? Sorry to go back, but when the sheriff's office makes a funding request, and, I mean, when they prepare their budget and they know if there's a 3% COLA built into the contract, that's not something that's budgeted for at the time we approve the contract?
Supposed to,
Why would
but
we
they
see
did
that?
not know about this.
Till
Is that-
November.
Right.
Which item are you on, which line?
Oh,
Are you- did you
I'm
go
basically
back?
back to
Back
line
to eight.
6.
Back to eight?
Oh, six, I'm
six.
sorry,
7, 8.
6.
Like 6, it says, I'm just seeing that where it says 3% cost of living that is allowable under the contract. I mean, I guess in theory, whatever the trigger is, inflation rate or something, but I don't know, it just seems like every contract, if this was a normal thing, we'd be having a million of these. Oh, guess what? The 3% flavor, we have to contract, we'd have line items coming out of our ears. And so this is just, it's not like when the contract's up and the rate goes up, then I understand they come back and say, oh, okay, it went up, we weren't able to negotiate the same price. But when it's a built-in 3% COLA into the contract, why would they coming back to ask for more money to cover something that should have been budgeted out when they started? I mean, it's not a huge amount,
They've told
but
us they did not know at the time of the budget
that there was a COLA built in.
that it would be this much.
Yeah.
They didn't know the amount.
That's what we've been told, yes, they did not know at the
Can we
time.
circle back on that? And I think, because what I'm hearing the commissioner say is, if this is an anticipated cost, we'd want to know how are they anticipating those costs going forward? So that it's, and not knowing the details, is it up to 3% and it went all the way up to 3% and they budgeted for less? I'm not saying that's
How are
what
they
happened.
handling that?
Right.
Because this would be silly to have every contract in the county coming back because some amount of, there'd be a bunch, solid waste goes up every year. All the leases, I mean, we've done dinky little leases for the sheriff's office, I'm picking on them, but I just remember that they've got a couple little offices and we talked about the built-in rate increase every year and you budget for that so that you don't have to keep coming back to the board for your extra 1.5% increase. So I'm just confused by this request.
So we were on line 9.
Sorry, can I
Yeah.
stop before we get there, since we went back? For number 8, I think, so my brain is a little confused because of what we did earlier with the transferring the funds. If this is coming out of the general fund, how does that relate to what the decision we made earlier? Is this being pulled from the general fund, before, I don't know, can you explain that a little bit?
This is the corrections, the one that we decided before was for law enforcement, so this
Oh, yeah.
is,
Okay,
will not be impacted by public safety sales tax.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, so line 9. Line 9 is ER&R, and this is for the replacement of some vehicles for the sheriff's office and also the solid waste department. These are replacements that came earlier than anticipated, so it's built into the rates, we put it in the reserve, however, they need the authority to be able to purchase these vehicles now.
This is replacing 2 totaled vehicles. Don't we get insurance checks to pay for new?
We don't claim insurance, the deductible's
Self-insured.
too low.
But it's other replacement of
too high.
vehicles as well, isn't it?
Deductible's too high.
Other replacement vehicles as well.
It's other vehicles
Yes, solid
besides the
waste
sheriff's office, right?
vehicles, yep, emergency management vehicles and some roads vehicles as well.
And again, the money's already in the fund. And this is unanticipated because who knew these would,
Because of crashes.
yeah,
Of course, dying.
yeah, those are unanticipated.
On for the vote? Thank you. And the last line on here is for the Parks and Trails Asset Management. This is, original funding for this asset replacement through the Parks and Trails was $50,000 in 2022. They have, meaning Public Works has continued to roll over this funding to continue the project. They're anticipating that this will be the last year they need to roll this funding forward, so it's $11,000 out of what was already appropriated. I'll call for the vote unless there's more conversation. Sorry. Thank you.
I had one additional item that I brought up earlier, and I think this is where it would go, but the 30,000 for a racial equity program. Is that where we would couch this, or is there somewhere else in the?
So I was looking to go through the packet and then address all of those at one time.
Okay. What? I thought it was.
So policy level capital request. One is through Public Works for $600,000, which is for compactor. This is replacement funding. They've been seeing some, the compactor has been down at times, so they're asking to build redundancy, so they're asking for $600,000 for the compactor. It is out of the solid waste reserves fund.
They've got their own fund, right?
In the interest of time,
I think this is all done, isn't
all
it?
of the capital policy items are from other funds.
Yeah.
They are, items you've seen before. None of these funds are in trouble, if you will. And we would recommend that you approve them all. There you go.
We're done?
Got a few other things.
All this other stuff. Yeah, we're not done. We got at least 2-3 hours more.
I just wanted to follow up on some items on the errata list. There are just a couple to touch base on. First one is the beginning fund balance. It has been the procedure here to approve the fund balance, the beginning fund balance for the next fiscal year. This is done through financial services. It concluded or closed 2023, and so this is the fund balance for 2024. We have an attachment that says actual ending reserve fund balance. It's like this. So this is just how 2023 ended the year, so that we can put it in the system for the beginning fund balance for 2024.
It's a technical change. You don't have a decision that you can make.
Right, we can't change anything in the list there. It's just for your review and approval to put it into our budgeting system. Okay,
So, it dropped, I'm sorry, what is it, what's the change? Can you walk me through it?
sure. So for instance, the general fund is the first line there. So it's saying that at the end, in column A, that the ending fund balance for 2023 is $38.9 million. When we prepared the budget, we thought it would be 33.6. And so this packet here is saying that we will put in column A into our budget system to accurately reflect what the 2023 budget ended at.
And that's what we're carrying over.
So we're carrying over. So when you start this fiscal year, this will be the 38.9 million.
This is because we have, of the way the system works, our financial system works, we have to estimate what the ending fund balance is going to be. It's never right. So we have to adjust it at this time. Once the year is closed. It's technical.
So then the next thing, on the errata list, if you go towards the bottom, it says position control resolution. So this is an update to the ARPA vacant positions. In the budget, we correctly added the amount of appropriation that was needed in 24 and 25 to stick to those end dates for the ARPA positions. However, it wasn't reflected on the resolution for your position control. So we need to have HR needs to update the position control to reflect what you approved and what is in the budget. So this is a request that we can make the position resolution match the budget and what you approved in 24, 25 is a technical correction. Yes, thumbs up, please.
Tell me the line again that you're on right now.
It's the third from the bottom. It says position control resolution.
Yeah, got it. So there's not a line number?
No, not on this sheet.
Okay.
Looking at the budget, we saw the budget dollars aligned with what you approved, but however, the position control did not reflect that. HR, so we're just asking to update the position control associated with what it is that you approved in the budget. Three, four.
Well, I think I'm good with it. There's not a dollar amount
Are these
affiliated.
positions in Superior Court? Where are these positions?
In PAO, right, Jennifer?
And is this not one of the ones that the board just said to come in on a
One of them is yes.
So I wouldn't change them both at this point if you could be amenable to funding them in ARPA, because then we'd just have to reestablish it.
Yeah, we did talk with HR, but we wanted to have the approval depending what that would be.
I don't see a dollar amount.
You won't know
we're
that
talking
now
about.
until May or June.
It's true.
Is there a dollar amount?
There is no dollar amount, so you already approved it during the biennium, so this is correcting the position control, where you list each position number and what that end date is, with what it is the dollars that you approved in the budget. So this is correcting the two.
So what are we approving or disapproving?
You are approving the change to the position control resolution to match what the budget dollars are that you approved.
So we passed a resolution and we all voted for it, and now we're changing that resolution?
You're updating the resolution to include the positions that had end dates that were not included on that resolution.
It's like a cleanup item,
Okay.
so adding in that additional detail.
Okay,
I guess if we've already done it, we've done it, right?
yes.
We're just recognizing that we've
Yeah,
done
but
it.
you're getting ready to potentially fund one of them, so why would you remove them both?
Yeah, okay.
Yes, I worked with HR. HR needs this decision made so they can put it on the resolution, so they need, this process has to go through us, yeah, to clean things up.
The other transaction later.
Right.
So there was four thumbs, 5 thumbs. Thanks.
Okay, so then, the last items are to go through the requests, that were given to us right before we closed at the end. Go through, for instance, Stevie's position now. Robin, if she'd like to bring up the model at this time too, just look at some of these decisions when we start talking about the road fund
Did you
transfer.
cover this document in their packet?
Yep, so the juvenile facility project is on here too. That's one of the list items that we would go through. So we'll go through the JFC.
This is just these aren't dialed in costs yet, these are just estimates, right?
Yes.
I appreciate the team putting this together so you can see the total cost, this is really helpful.
So we have,
I think many of you have toured the site and understand that operationally it's very challenging out there currently.
so outside of the requests that were included in your packet, there are about 5 additional requests that need your attention. So the first one is DV's, the DEI program funding, ongoing program for $30,000 or $40,000 that would impact the general fund.
And where are you finding that at?
So at our last,
Oh, yeah, this is.
Your seatmate
now
brought
we're
up
off-
this morning.
We're off the paper, this is, off the papers here. These were thoughts that came through commissioners for requests.
Commissioner Fournier brought this up this morning.
Oh,
Yeah. So we finished the packets right now, and now we're on to additional commissioners' requests.
Yes, I have, a recommendation or the suggestion that Commissioner Fournier made. That's for their. I mean, well, it's your suggestion, so. So I guess I would say that, I thank Commissioner Fournier for, bringing this up. I guess my recommendation would be for it not to be ongoing funding and from 30,000 to reduce it to 15. So then DV has the ability to set up the affinity groups, hear from, employees on, what is going, hear that open feedback. And then during the budget midterm, for her to actually bring a proposal of like, this is actually kind of where the needs are, this is what we would need, and it would be a laid out budget plan. And I think the 15 would give her enough money or enough funding to like set up whatever she needs to set up in the meantime, and move from there.
I would respectfully recommend that you do not add money for the budget. Because of $15,000, DV could be having a conversation with the county managers. We should be able to absorb that much if there there's something that is needed at this time. Because, again, now is not the time to bring in new ideas.
You're trying to be consistent.
I am trying to be consistent with our rules, and I believe that the commissioner's office should lead the way.
Set the example.
I do eat our own dog food.
Yeah, I, 15 or 30, I don't know what the right number is, but I do know that 0 is not the right number, and from what I'm told, that's where the number's at right now for that program, so anything's better than nothing, and I would, I think you're right, not making it an ongoing thing, and then addressing that, in the midterm to ensure that there's ongoing funding would probably be just as good. So, 30 was me just throwing a number at the wall and seeing what would stick, but I'm hoping something sticks.
Okay, I'm gonna be consistent. I guess I'd kind of follow Commissioner Mejia on her recommendations on this topic, so.
That's support for the 15 one-time?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the plan to come on back?
Yeah, and then, I mean, is that something that the commissioner's office can absorb?
Yes, yes, it really is.
So then-
this is what I'm saying, don't add money for something if.
I just want assurances then that that's gonna happen. Cause I mean, I just don't want, if the situation is, that employee is just trying to like, I wanna empower that position better than we have. And I wanna do it right here, right now, and not leave it up to being done. I'm not saying anything, but just being done upstairs in an office. And, I wanna let everybody know that this is something we do wanna empower. We're listening and we're trying to do a better job. And so I'd like it answered definitively in this boardroom at some point, sometime soon.
Just takes one more.
If not right now.
Takes one more thumbs up.
Well, unless we've got 3.
No, we've got
You were-
2. We've got 2.
Well, I can support that
Okay,
compromise.
so then we're at 3, so it looks like it'll happen, it's my
I'm confused
estimation.
about the difference between the proposal.
I initially asked for 30 to 40,000 on ongoing funding, and Commissioner Mejia said, well, hey, let's pare it down
From
to
the general
15.
fund, or,
It'd
and
be out
Robin's
of the
saying we
general
could absorb
Out
it.
of, yeah.
So either way, it's gonna happen.
But what I heard was that we could absorb it. That person's got to come in and tell us what they want to use it for. And what I'm saying is I don't want to leave it in the dark. I want to end it right now. I'm sorry. I want to put it to bed and say, look, there's money for this program. And it's not, it's a fledgling thing. It's a startup thing. And we've put no money to seed it.
Yeah.
And we
That's
need to-
not correct.
Okay.
Actually, so we can have a conversation about how much money is in the commissioner's office budget that is specifically for DEI, because there is money there. But I'm encouraging you, you don't need to add it at this time,
But couldn't they direct the county manager
to work with DV.
to identify 15,000, if Robin's saying we have it in there, to identify 15,000 so that she can begin immediately to move her program forward, and in that process to come back at a later time and to have a larger discussion about what other needs she may have so that we can budget appropriately for that, so that Commissioner Fournier, it's not in the dark, but it's clear direction to me that we will say, we're gonna move forward with this money and look at how do we continue to advance our program.
Okay.
So make that motion, I'll second it.
So moved.
Second.
Again.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. So we do not have a budget amendment item, but we do have direction. Unanimous direction of the board.
The next request was for the tax title property in Boston Harbor, to be able to put some funding aside to hold the purchase of that. I did reach out to Public Works and found out a little bit more information on this request here. So
it appears that there was evaluation on the operational need of being able to purchase the property, the tax title property. And since then, there has been reconsideration of that brought by the members of Boston Harbor, the Utility Advisory Committee members. And so scheduled for May 9th is the ability to address that purchase and being able to look into what needs there may be, either a buffer or some sort to have that kind of conversation. Also at this point, the amount to purchase this, if that reconsideration conversation goes through and it's decided that we should purchase it, $2,600 is easily absorbed within the Public Works budget, and so necessarily you won't need a budget amendment, but for May 9th for that discussion to go forward.
What's gonna happen May 9th?
The Utility Advisory Committee will be taking this up on their agenda.
So what I'm hearing is Public Works can absorb this request?
If the direction is to purchase this can be
Through the utilities budget.
it's from the utility fund.
So as a reminder, the Utility Advisory Committee is just that. It advises the department and the utilities, makes a recommendation to it, does not necessarily go from that recommendation to an actuality.
Well, I guess kind of my proposal that was that if their recommendation was basically a thumbs up to purchase it, that's why I wanted to have that hold in there, so the board at that time could move forward with that recommendation from the advisory board.
If they get that recommendation.
If we get that
If they get that.
If-
Using the utility fund?
I was just saying general fund.
No, we don't want
So
that.
what we can do then is bring back.
Gary doesn't
back-
want to touch general fund.
If it's necessary.
We can bring
then you
back
pay it
the
out of the
determination from the utility committee to determine whether or not they view that property as valuable or useful.
$25 a person.
Yeah, start doing GoFundMe accounts.
So it sounds to me like this is one like the last one in a sense, right? We don't need the budget authority, we just need to, at the time that the
Direction.
Utility Committee gives their recommendation, the board will make a motion to direct purchase to Public Works, and they've already got the money.
Right.
Is that good?
Sounds good.
Just don't want any hiccups to happen once it comes forward.
Rob and I will shepherd this one through, and if there are hiccups, we'll bring back the indigestion for consideration.
All right.
So the next item is the juvenile facility project. This was asked, Rick, he was able to do a very preliminary assessment on what this project will cost, and the funding is before you at $1.6 million. We do have information out for a grant, and we don't know if we're gonna get that grant award, so I believe the whole question before us is, do we want to be able to put this money into the budget to hold in case we don't get that federal award? The assistant county manager.
It's sounding unlikely.
sounding unlikely.
Where's the money coming from, the 1.6?
If you refer
don't
back
have
to,
a source for
right
it.
here, there's 5.2 million.
It's out of that?
Yeah, this is what's left over from last year that carries over to the next year.
That's fine. I'm good with it. I mean, I want to do it because I think our liability continues to increase every day that we don't do it.
I want us to talk about the road fund first,
What fund?
the road fund.
You want to take road fund money out?
No,
and do this?
absolutely, I do not want to take, I mean, the fact of the matter is, we're one of the highest, like, counties of the state that has that amount of diversion and shift. And I sit on the crab board, and let me tell you, it's pretty embarrassing, that we're at that level, and it's just, it really is.
Who's all on the board with you on that? What counties?
We have several counties. We have Lewis, we have Skagit, we have Snohomish. I don't remember all of them, but there's
You know-
it's split between Eastern and
I'm just going to comment why I've made this statement before. We're going to be stuck in this position with inadequate funds to provide services for Thurston County with the revenue stream that we were given through the Growth Management Act. And it all has to do with no retail outlet in the unincorporated area of Thurston County. All retail is in the incorporated area, basically, and there's a 85% split. 85% goes to the cities, and we just don't have any revenue. We need to try to rectify that.
I mean, and that 5.25 revert, I mean, that's, I mean, it's a false, it's, right? We've just basically indebted ourselves in the road fund where we're gonna have to be cutting maintenance, because of this, and we're, Public Works is already looking at, cutting chip seal in our county, and I feel if we got that reversion, we should put it back in the road fund. I do not want to be taking any more funds from the road fund than we really absolutely need to. I mean, we stretched a lot last year, and if we got lucky with this reversion, I think we need to put it back, or
Came from the road fund.
So it was an additional 2.5 above what we done before.
So
Total.
Which brought us up to six.
6.7.
Yeah, 6.7.
4.7 shift and then diversion of 1.5.
All those other jurisdictions have a retail outlet in the unincorporated areas of the county. We don't.
So the conversation is to see what that impact to the general fund is if we were to move that fund balance back into the road fund.
What's the total again?
6.7 million total.
5.2 million carryover. I'm asking for 1.6 for the FJC, so that leaves 3.6.
Yes, but we should look at what that impact looks like to the fund.
Yeah, you don't
All of it in
go down to
context.
zero.
There it is.
See if it works. God bless you. So, how much are you proposing, and in which year we would shift back to the road fund?
I'm proposing that we shift the full $4 million for this year.
In this year?
Back as fund balance, is that what you're?
Yep. So, here's where we're at. This includes all of the decisions that you've made so far that impact the general fund, including moving the MOU amount into the public safety tax. What it does not include is money for the road shift and money for the FJC. So if I add the $4 million this year, give it back to the road fund, this is what it looks like.
But that's continuing to shift it next year?
That continues the shift at the full amount next year.
Just a one-time?
It's a one-time push, 4 million back to the road fund. And this gets us to about where you were at the time you passed the budget.
What assumptions are built into this model here?
What would you like to know?
I think that's an offline conversation between you and I. So I
That's,
can understand.
yeah.
This looks like a very complicated model.
It includes appropriation, total appropriation for this year, current estimated revenue for this year,
Well, I think it's the
growth
estimated revenue
in
that-
the property tax.
Sure, we'll talk offline.
Yeah,
So what about the jail then? To add the jail in there?
so if we were to add in the
Juvenile
jail,
facility, I should say.
which is a one-time thing, make sure I'm on the right line. Take it down a little more, another 1.6 million. And again, these are one-time things, so the impact is to just pull it down. You've pulled down the fund balance in every year by $5.6 million.
Now,
None
can
of
you-
these are
Can you
ongoing.
put 2 million back, like if you were only
Sure.
pulling 2 million back to the road fund instead of 4? But the one fund basis. That kind of offsets the juvenile jail.
Yep.
And then put the 2 million back, like no road fund restoration, just the juvenile jail.
So part of the conversation that I've heard the board have is that, offices and departments don't believe that the general fund is in less than stellar shape because you currently have a very high ending fund balance. When in reality, you have the high ending fund balance because we took maximum advantage of the ARPA money and you are diverting nearly $7 million a year out of the road fund. If you were to restore those things, then we would not have an ending fund balance like this, and we would quickly be in the red in every year.
If you take the road fund diversion out of this model, it's just it's catastrophic.
And that's where the general fund really is, because you are balancing the general fund on the back of the road fund. And you've heard from your public works director and your engineer that we've got to do something to shore up the road fund. We cannot continue to take it at the amount that you've been
Let's
taking.
develop retail outlet in the
So,
unincorporated area of the county.
You're gonna be looking at budget cuts coming up because we have not seen a change in revenue. The sales tax is coming in right where we thought it would. In fact, we could probably get the April amount tomorrow, but it's flat. Revenue is flat. There has not been this big turnaround that people thought there would be. We pulled in less property tax last year into the general fund than we did the year before. We double-checked those numbers because it was such an anomaly. So revenue is not supporting ongoing spending at the level that you're having. And the fact that offices and departments don't realize that and keep coming to you with asking for more and more, especially off-cycle, is just going to perpetuate the problems in the general fund.
So I really just think that, I mean, they need to see the reality of it, right? And if we keep putting this burden on the road fund, the board just really needs to decide. And for me, the picture looks bleak without the road fund, but I think that's just what it is. And we have to start living within our means and not, we've just been really living off the road fund, and that's just not a good sustainable way to move forward.
You're not wrong.
Growth management
Not
stage
wrong.
2.
Still need to fix the jail, kitty jail.
Yep. If we don't fix the deal and we have an incident, then we're really in trouble.
So the last two items are, do you want to earmark 1.6 million to fix the FJC?
I do.
Controls and the locks. And then, do you want to shift any money back to the road fund, and if so, how much?
I don't.
So, well, let's take them one at a time. FJC. 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
yes, for the FJC out of the general fund.
No.
We're down. And a no. So it's a 3-2 vote.
Can't decide.
And shifting money back to the road fund.
So that puts us, so I mean, that's done, so that's where we are now.
That is exactly where you are now.
That's the juvenile jail without any road fund shift.
Correct.
So that decision just took us from our target line to where that looks like. And so the question is road fund shift, and we'll shift back, I should say.
Shift back part of it, yep. So if you shifted back an additional 2 million, it would look like this. And take you pretty much to where you were at the time the budget passed.
I mean, I understand the rationale. I think I was the one that threw the idea out, but the road fund is not in a situation right now. The problem is doing that, yeah, it shows a picture to the rest of the county or whatever, but that's more realistic, but ultimately, the problem is the built-in, this is built on a built-in shift of another 6 million for the next year, you know, every year. So that's the problem. That's what we have to address in the budget when we build.
So I would like to clarify that the additional 2.47, is one time, well, it's two-time. It's a two-time thing. It's not an ongoing thing. I did not build that into future years, so it's 6.7 in this year, 6.7 next year, and then
Back to where we were before.
yes. So, still
Still
not
too
good,
much, yeah.
but still too much, right?
Well, anyway, I mean, I guess it's just shifting back money now isn't gonna really solve anything other than just the optics. What really has to be addressed is this built-in, this high built-in amount.
Right.
For this year, it actually will. I mean, Public Works is, again, they already said they're gonna be cutting back on the chip seal this year. Like, this year, they're not going to be doing as much chip
If we
seal.
put this back, they'll do more chip seal.
They'll be able to do it, but, you know, right now, they're like looking to see like, what is it? And chip seal is one of the things that they're gonna be cutting back on. Like, they're already looking to cut back this year. It's not next year or the year after. It's already this year that they're looking to make those cuts. And that's why I'm like, we had a higher reversion, let's just pay back that, like, for this year at least. Like, let's just,
So you're recommending only the money that came back one
Just-
time, give it back this year?
yes.
And then reevaluate next year.
Oh,
and
next year.
reevaluate next
Okay.
year.
And I thought you were referring to on the ongoing basis.
I mean, I would love that, but I know for right now, we just have that reversion money that we got, and I would rather just,
So
when
then,
you said that, Commissioner Menser, I was like absolutely 100% behind you, because I thought you were absolutely on point, and
Well, I was dealing with the frustration of arguing with the different, you know, elected and department heads, you know, like, you've got all this money from the, you know, and I just like, no, we don't have all this money. Like, that fund balance does not translate into long-term financial stability. It just doesn't. We built
Right.
in the spend down because we had to, and you got a lot of things granted based on that money that have ongoing costs that are not sustainable.
Right. And it looks like this because we are diverting so much from the
Yeah,
road.
so I mean, that's where my frustration yielded, like, well, then let's just shift it all back, and then they can't tell us that we have it.
well, I believed you 100%, let me tell you.
I mean, ultimately, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, honestly, because we're dealing with the future projection, and we can, it's pain now, pain later. It's coming.
so what was the number that was reverted? And that's not, that number is now minus 1.62.
So we got a windfall, if you will, of about $4 million in reversion,
How
more
much is
than
it?
we thought. $4 million. And this picture here is 1.621 for this, plus $2 million for the road fund.
But it wasn't it 5.2 according to your chart?
That's with, official ending fund balance. That's an accounting thing. We had projected between, right around 4 million.
We just spent 1.6 in the jail,
That's right.
so there's 2.4 there.
I've got 2 there. If I'm gonna make it 2.4,
2.3,
here's 2.4. It doesn't change it all that much, the picture.
so that's the question that's being discussed, is do we send that back to the road fund?
I'll leave it in the,
I'll leave it.
put it all back, just so we can, that's 2.4 shift, that's the full amount left shifted. Can you put it back?
Yep.
I can't see your legend all the way. What's the blue line?
So the blue line is a 2-month target, if we had a 2-month ending fund balance, 2 months of expenditures, which is, I'm sure you know, is the, gold standard.
That's what we target our
Yeah,
fund balance.
that's what we try to target to. The
long
black line is, cash flow, 12 million for cash flow. And then the bars, obviously, fund balance, the green dotted line is projected revenue, and the red dotted line is the, projected expenditures. What this does not include is, let's look, before I say that, I believe this includes a modest COLA, not
Not
some
what-
of the numbers like we've been here.
That's what I'm worried about.
Me too.
So, yes or no to transferring 2.4 million to the road fund this year?
I'm done.
There's a
I'll take
no.
whatever I can get, I guess.
Why did we, I thought it was 2. We bumped it up to 2.4.
Well, I was asked to show 2.4, and then I did,
The
so
remaining excess amount.
throw out a number.
It's the remaining amount of what was,
Okay. But we need to keep
The,
a little buffer in there, right?
it's however much you do or don't want to do.
I mean, the reality is that really isn't any buffer. I mean, we just, sorry, but we really have to start learning, like, living within our means, and I just refuse to keep putting this burden on the road fund, especially when the board hasn't, decided to do like an alternate route on how to fund, either fund the transportation benefit district, everyone kind of decide not, and we just have to do something about the road fund.
Even with this picture, what this picture shows you is, and it's very clear right here, is you have a gap between your revenue and your expenditures. In these current years, look at how much of a gap that is, and that is with transferring almost $7 million from the road fund. So you're already in deficit spending with shifting a huge amount out of your road fund. What was it, about a third? How much? 1/3, 25%? So 1/4 of your revenue coming into the road fund is getting diverted to the general fund. And even with that, you are having a huge deficit spending to the effect that you're planning to bring your ending fund balance in the general fund down. And we know that that doesn't include substantial COLAs or other expenditure growth like medical inflation, which we know is going to come next year. So you're already not in a good shape. And you would think that that is me arguing for not shifting money back, but it's not. I started saying this last year. We've got to get our revenue. Our revenue is going to pre-COVID levels. Our expenditures are way above at post-COVID levels.
20%
You've
more
got
because of
to-
inflation.
You've got to, for whatever reason, we've got to get our revenue, our expenditures back in line with our revenue. They are way off right now. And taking more money out of the road fund is not gonna fix that, especially when your stakeholders say you got a lot of money in the bank.
So does that green line, the revenue, include the road fund? So what happens if you take the road fund out of that green line?
If we completely take the,
Let's not go there.
ugly. Let's see if I can,
Love to see the ugly pictures.
all right. So,
You don't wanna
hang
see
on a
it.
sec.
Careful what you ask for. Like a horror movie?
It's like a horror movie.
It's a horror movie.
This,
Can we remove the county manager's salary? And see what it looks like. Oh. Yeah, zoom
That's
out.
what it looks like if we're not rating the road fund.
That doesn't make sense.
It's ugly.
It's happening all around the country. It's got to do with that inflation thing. We're 20% in the hole.
It's got to do with authorizing more
I know.
expenditures that we can afford.
But the dollar only buys so much.
Print more.
That doesn't help either.
So tail end of that, rant, no, I'm just kidding.
Her TED Talk, that was her
It is
TED
a
Talk.
rant.
The tail end of that was that you're saying, you're advising us to shift the money back just to do what kind of I originally said, which was to create a more realistic scenario for what we're
It
facing.
is a more realistic scenario. It also, it puts you in the same place as you were at the time you passed the budget.
Okay.
I mean, you're not in a worse off position now than you were 3 months ago, and you're actually improving
And we
the
fixed the
state of the
jail.
road fund.
Commissioner Mejia, is that your motion? 2.4 million shares?
You sure I can't convince you for the 4?
Not with the jail vote.
Can we see that one again with the 4 in the jail? Is that what this one is?
4 in the jail?
I'm gonna bring my printing press up.
That
here
has
tonight.
4
Start
million
printing
to the
wooden
road
money for
fund
the
and the
county.
jail.
I mean, this looks really bad, but I'm kind of with Commissioner Mejia that like, I mean, in the long term, it's gonna cost us so much more if we can't maintain the roads. We saw the presentation about the long-term cost of not maintaining them, and that worries me more than this, because it's gonna look worse than this if we don't maintain them now.
And if you're interested in economic development, one of the most important thing to businesses is, are there decent roads?
Exactly.
Roads, parks, county
Schools.
infrastructure,
Yeah,
schools,
it matters a lot more than just,
industrial
Yes.
areas.
$4 million doesn't fix all our roads, just to be clear.
No,
But
but
it
it'll,
would
But yes, I mean, what we can transfer back, I'm gonna be in support of, but
Commissioner Mejia, what's the, what, is your reasoning for starting with 4? Is there a specific reason, or is it just you're throwing something out there to see? Is there a reason why it's that amount?
That's what we transferred last year, and so that's why I was like, well, seeing that we have this high reversion rate, like, I mean, let's just give it back specifically, just since Public Works has been saying, like, we're gonna have to cut back maintenance already this year because we just can't sustain this anymore, and so I was like, we have this high reversion rate, and I was on board with Commissioner Mentzer's proposal, and I was like, absolutely, that's where we should be heading, is we took this money to try to like float ourselves through these next couple of years, but if there's a possibility that we can give it back
Yeah.
and
I
at
said
least.
2 million, just for the record.
2 million
You
sounds
doubled,
good.
you doubled down.
They've already said they're doing 67 miles of chip seal. I don't think that they can bump that up to any more.
Well, no, they're cutting
bit-
back on that 67 miles, like, that's what they're cutting back on, is that 67 miles that they're saying that they're going to do, they're going to be having to cut back on that because
It'd be great to hear from Public Works as to what the dollar amount actually provides.
I think they gave us a presentation on that right before you came,
Oh,
and I still have the packet.
So they just went out for a call for bids.
They went home an hour and a
as
half
well.
ago.
So we don't know, until we get the bids, we won't know what we are actually able to.
So if we put this money back in today, how much we gonna take out next year?
Tomorrow.
No, it won't be tomorrow, but it will be next year.
Next year would be the full, because we built the biennium. Yeah, I know, it's not gonna.
It doesn't solve anything.
No, it doesn't.
Does not solve one thing.
You don't think like long-term it would
Good.
prevent more?
Oh, no, we're in trouble. We're in trouble with inflation and we're in trouble with the lack of revenue.
So the board mitigated budget cuts by transferring more out of the road fund. And it turned out that offices and departments underestimated how much they would revert.
So this would mean like major budget cuts for departments and offices next year, probably.
You're gonna face that anyway.
Okay.
But worse if you do this.
Yeah, you can always pull it out later.
You
Put
put it back in
the well.
now, it's just be like it's sitting there until we pull it out
Or
again.
you make cuts to bring yourself closer to a non-deficit position.
And that's probably not gonna happen in the law and justice arena, it's gonna happen everywhere else.
You got a new public safety
Yeah,
sales
that's what I was
tax.
gonna say. I mean,
Well, the supplanting clause, I hope
Yeah.
it doesn't go to court.
maintenance of effort is all we have to worry about. I'm with Commissioner Mejia as much as we could possibly get back into the road fund. And, I mean, but then if we do authorize that, whether it's 4 or 2.4 or 2, if we decide to pass that, then I feel like my seat, like, we should all be comfortable saying no more often, which is hard to do, and we don't do it enough. But I think we really need to
I'm
start
starting
shifting.
today by saying no.
Yeah, I mean, we
myself.
said a bunch, we said yes to a lot of
You
stuff.
just started
today.
yesterday.
You just said
Yeah.
yes
Yes
to,
to almost
you said
everything.
yes to a few new positions.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm
Said,
guilty.
I mean,
But I do
with
think,
this
like-
kind of a position
All
that
we
you're
need
in.
is retail outlet in the unincorporated area of the county.
I just worry about the
Just
long-term
one.
No, we
impact.
need a
One
lot.
Sears, we just
We
need one
need-
Sears out
we
in the
need
county, and
some
we're
malls.
good.
So what do you wanna do with this? This is the last decision on the table.
So I want to clarify something I said. I said that they were already thinking about it, but they're still evaluating the cheap sale bids, and that's when they're gonna do it. So I just wanted to correct the record, because I was like, no, they're already gonna do it, but they're gonna wait for the bids. But they are evaluating short-term strategies, and we'll be bringing that at a future briefing date for us, so.
I would go to $2 million.
2.4?
I mean,
Come on, just 2.4.
we already spent 1.62, and so we've already spent almost half of it. And
Second.
I'll bring 2 million shipped back.
I'm at 2.4 if we can get.
2.4. Just 400,000.
25, 25.
No, no,
Yep,
like,
yep,
how
yep,
much?
yep.
That 400,000 makes a difference too.
Commissioner Edwards, where you at?
Yeah.
Zero.
We got
I'm not
stalemate.
compromising, because I know what's coming next year.
I guess we gotta arm wrestle.
Commissioner Edwards said,
Practicing.
don't spend any money on road maintenance because prices were too high because of oil price.
Oil is the driver, I wasn't gonna bring that up. Everything in this world runs on fossil fuel. Everything you get delivered, shipped, built, plastic, batteries,
It's
melting
5:40.
steel, whatever it
It's
is,
late. Let's
is
make this quick.
everything runs on oil. And when we've got a war on oil going on in the United States, we've got a problem. Europe shifted back to coal for this winter, get cold over there. So as long as you've got a war on oil, you're gonna have economic problems like you've not seen before. And our state, in the price of gas, shows it. We're the highest state in the nation,
Reel us in, Chair.
highest state in the nation on gasoline taxes.
So it is 5:40.
One decision, one final decision.
There
made.
still is one more
There's
thing.
more, so, I mean, the reality is, there's the only thing that, the most thing we have a majority for is a $2 million road shift. I'm assuming you guys would vote for that versus zero.
Oh, yeah.
And Commissioner Fournier and I will back you up to 2 million, so that's the majority. If I have it
So
correct.
there we go. We got two.
Okay, I'll do 2.
2 million shifted back plus the juvenile jail funded.
Yes.
We've spent our windfall from basically from.
Yep, and did you say there's one more
next?
thing?
Yes, the medical equipment bank, that was also one of the items to discuss.
Is that an ARPA request though?
So I tried to look into that being an ARPA request. I wasn't able to get information on that right now, but it'd be $170,000. If it is an ARPA request, it would go through that process.
I mean,
I'm with the ARPA, I'm with the medical bank.
If it's ARPA only, or what if it?
Well, I want it to be ARPA, that's what I'm.
can we put a contingency then, like, that we're gonna check to see if ARPA is available for the medical bank? And if it's not, then it can come up to a decision for the board for general fund? Is that a possibility?
Take it out of the road fund.
Well, now, if you'd like to put it in the general fund, we can do it right now. How much is it?
170.
170.
Is there concern about it qualifying for for ARPA?
There is, I don't know what it is, we don't know if it qualifies or not, we'll have to look. If it's if it's just a straight up contribution to a nonprofit, and they are not in a what zone?
Since,
Yeah,
Yeah.
then it won't qualify.
What zone?
I have to get the right line.
It's not an
Oh,
empowerment zone, it's,
impacted area.
yeah, it's, yeah.
I'd have to work with Diana, she's an expert, she'd be able to let us know specifically.
Well, the medical bank operates under a different organ, which is the area agents,
Thurston County Council on Aging.
yes.
We
They get some help from the
looked into that last year, cause I thought it was the AAA and it wasn't.
No, it's different.
Correct, it's different, but that is a nonprofit organization, a private nonprofit, and, it would have to qualify, as operating within this zone. And what we've seen is the few things that have come in recently are not, and they are not eligible. And just by virtue of, them making a medical equipment available would not make them eligible for ARPA.
So the question before is, if it's ARPA eligible, do you want that to go through that process that we'll bring back in May?
Yes.
If it's not, do you want to hold general fund?
Do you wanna add general fund, $170,000?
I'd take that out of the road fund, so.
That's gonna be the next.
So, here's.
That's the six, that's the,
It's a
that's why I only
one-time
did 2
thing.
million.
That's why it was 2 instead of 2.4,
2.4,
right?
there's the little
So,
chunk.
Uh-huh.
yes or no? Let's do thumbs. Yes, general fund for this.
I'm to do
Item.
general fund or ARPA, either one for me.
Well, if we can get it in ARPA, we will, but it's highly unlikely. So, yes to the general fund, I see 1, 2
yeah.
thumbs, 1 down, 3 up.
I'm abstaining.
4 up. All right, 4 up, 1 down for general fund. Anything else?
That's it.
Anything else?
I have one thing. Can we really quickly revisit the discussion about transferring from the general fund to the public safety sales tax fund? During the break, I was wondering if anyone had any time to like revisit,
From the TTS.
the PTSD fund at this point.
So let me show you what this would look like without the transfer.
So the public safety sales tax packet transfers the 2024 appropriation for the 3 departments into the public safety sales tax. That amount is higher than your MOE amount, which is based off of 2023. So you get a benefit to your general fund by moving it out. So if you do not move that over, you will see an impact to the general fund.
Did you have a question about treatment
So
sales
your
tax?
MOE amount was based off of
Sales tax.
2023.
No, okay.
That's what was said in the provision. That amount, so 2024 had COLAs and other requests that came through during the budget process that increased that appropriation.
That's what Commissioner Klaus and I were asking about, that the baseline would not change because it was set up better
Yeah.
so
It's
2023.
not going to change going forward. Whatever was appropriated in 2024 in the general fund, that amount is moving into the public safety sales tax. The 2023 MOE amount will continue to be the same from year to year. It will not change.
Well, but just for this one, however long it takes us to get there, will have been spent.
There is a difference between your appropriated amount in 2024 and your MOE amount that is approved in 2023. Because the appropriated amount in 2024 included all of the requests that the sheriff kept coming through in 2024. It included that, so it increased your 2023 baseline in 2024.
This is the conversation where we need to have regarding how much general fund do you want to transfer above the MOE?
don't know that we're ready to have that conversation.
Exactly.
That's where
That
they-
is exactly
So,
right.
yeah, I think that to have that conversation, we need to first dissect what the issue is, what the questions are, and that's the briefing that Commissioner Mejia has requested and the board has requested to come back to say, let's lay this out. But my concern is that earlier when the decision was made, it sounded like there would be no impacts.
Yeah, and now you're saying there would be.
Yeah, and I was, what Commissioner Cost was asking is if there was any reconsideration from this that we decided on, was there any reconsideration during the break? And so, yeah, I'm also very confused with that, on that impact when,
I answered the question. From what I understood, you're asking if we were to do this transfer, will that change if we delay the request? Meaning if we make the decision today, or if you make that decision a month from now, will that make a difference? And the answer is no, it will not, right? The amount is the amount. So the 24 appropriation in the general fund, that amount will be the same if you do this request now or the request later.
So then what, when you said that it would benefit the general fund if we did the transfer, can you clarify that piece? Because that sounds like it contradicts what you're saying now. So I think I'm misunderstanding.
Okay, so the amount in the general fund, say for the sheriff's department, is about 26 point something million dollars. You're gonna take that entire appropriation out of the general fund, so it reduces your expenses in the general fund by $26 million, right? Now, the MOE amount that is in the general fund is around $23 million. There's a gap there. And that difference is where you get the benefit in the general fund. Because you're taking $26 million worth of expenses out of the general fund, you put them in public safety sales tax, and the only expense you're having is your MOE, which is $23 million. So that difference is the benefit to the general fund. That's the conversation to come back during your work session and say, how much more above that MOE amount do we want to place into the public safety sales tax fund?
And the last time that you reviewed the financial plan for the public safety sales tax, this is exactly what we assumed, was the transfer would happen as we showed it today.
Because legally, that gap could all be absorbed by the public safety sales tax.
That is correct. But you
All
can,
new spending.
right, it would be considered new spending, but you can put more into it. But this is just based off of the amounts that were appropriated and approved in the MOE level. So the general fund sees that difference.
How does that change? But that doesn't, that's just a function of that mechanism. It's not that the timing of it changes that.
Correct.
That's the answer the timing doesn't change that.
Okay, and that's the question we were really worried about on whether to take this action, but you're just informing us, enhancing our understanding that there is a general fund, potential general fund,
Impact if you were not to go.
positive impact to,
If we did what?
If you do not go through, say, you decide that you don't want to do the transfer out of the general fund
at all.
that would impact your general fund.
Because it would be putting back in the general fund expenses that could have
So
been.
are you saying the three boys are correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what I'm hearing.
We all three we voted against you girls. So I'm wondering who made the mistake, because I've been kind of thinking maybe I made a
Not a
mistake.
Not a mistake. I think she's just further elaborating, saying that if you don't get to it, if we don't ever do it, then of course there's gonna be a huge impact, but that's kind of understandable because you have to balance it out.
Right.
You have to move the money eventually. But to the question about,
But
So maybe that's what I was.
okay, you don't have to, but if you don't, there's gonna be an impact to the general
That's
fund.
right, and that was my point.
But not on the timing. Right now, the timing doesn't create that issue.
So we could wait for a work session and not impact the general fund.
so if you don't do it now, you
Yes,
won't be
yeah.
able to do it until next year.
We already decided
Yeah, that was
we're doing it. That decision's been made.
To do it now, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, we had the boys against the girls.
Yeah, well,
and that's why I was asking to revisit,
assuming-
because I heard from a constituent that there potentially was, an opportunity to flip that vote.
Well, I mean,
Well,
once
that's all.
once a vote's been made, doesn't mean you can't, I guess, undo it, but, I mean,
I just want to make sure which side is the benefit? Which group gets the county more benefit? That's what I'm looking for. Is there an answer to that?
but it's 6 o'clock.
Benefit to the general fund is to make the transfer.
6 o'clock, we already made a
Yeah.
decision.
The other way is more benefit to the law enforcement, public safety fund at the expense of all the other needs in the county.
Think of it as a fixed cost
How,
that you're the same year over year.
how this tax, even with non-supplanting language, is gonna help us in a more generalized way.
So you're still the same? I mean, that sounds like reasonable. That sounds like it makes more sense to me, I think.
Yeah,
I'll
that's,
go with whatever benefits the general fund.
I kind of want to benefit.
And then
I
I'll
wanna
have a
do the
one-on-one
I wanna
meeting with
do
you
the
to
right
figure out
thing.
what the heck is
Is
going
what I
on.
want to do, is the right thing.
Round that up. I think that we need to provide some briefings on how things are moving around and
Yeah.
I definitely want to dig into that model to understand what the assumptions are, because in any model there are assumptions. And so with that, I think shot clock is running, so.
Stay here
To
for
the
another
end.
hour.
Yeah, you know,
So we'll make these decisions.
Let's talk about the road funds.
June fourth for adopting.
Yeah.
All right, so we haven't come to the end of the agenda. We're agreeing to table a couple of items.
Wait, what do we have left?
Well, just our normal external board report. It's a Robert's Rules thing. If you don't formally come to the end of the agenda, then you need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion's